Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another debate dissection with my good friend and your good friend and a 2K celebrant, Ember. How you doing, Ember? That was a lot of fun on your stream. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. Oh,
Mm.
we should play games more often. We should just this
Yeah.
this idea. There has to be some kind of major milestone to justify a celebration. Like we should
Mhm.
just do it, like 4 times a year or something. I don't know, but
Yeah,
more
yeah.
often.
No, I'm with
Yeah.
you. I'm with you. Look, I think more games. I think games are integral to humans. I think that sort of or even intelligent things like dolphins play games kind of thing. It's just a natural thing for problem solvers to do. I think, and we're all problem solvers. So yeah, I think that's a very natural thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how are you doing today? How are you? I do have to. I'll say that. How are you doing?
Pluses and minuses.
Hmm.
As I often do, I spent the day with my son, and I made waffles. It's been a minute. I
Okay.
only burned the first couple a little,
Okay.
but we had a nice time.
Yeah, that's cool. I've got a storm going on in the background here, so I'm not sure if I will keep connected. I'm going to assume I will. It's usually pretty good, so I'm going to assume that I will. But just to let you in on a secret, I've got a massive storm in the background, which yeah. So we'll see how it goes, but we should be okay. We should be okay.
Have
I
you made an
do.
offering to Zeus today?
Maybe not. Maybe not. I think I wanted to grab your link for your the GoFundMe kind of thing.
Ah,
Um,
yes, yes.
so this is help Ember not die, which would be very helpful. So I'm going to put that in chat. So if we're doing a bit of a fundraise for Ember, so I'm just going to throw that if I can manage it, throw it in chat and pin it. So please help if you can. If not, totally understand, but please help if you can. Only if you can though, because we
Yeah,
like
I
Ember.
very much appreciate it. I enjoy not dying. The story is long, but there's a synopsis in the link if you want to read up
Right,
on it.
right.
Eventually, I'll go into more detail, but that's
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
no problem at all. I really do wanna support that. So I'm gonna throw that in the chat and I will pin it just in case somebody comes in later.
Yeah, thank you.
There you go. All right, so the debate was between William Lane Craig and Anthony Flew. Never heard of Anthony Flew before. We haven't actually heard him speak. All last week was just William Lane Craig's wild stuff.
It
I
was a
think
pile of Craig.
it was a pile of Craig, yes, and he really, I mean, he's been making a living off this sort of, the cosmological argument that he's been doing for ages, kind of thing. So, I don't think he's got anything new. I've never heard of Anthony Fillard. It'll be interesting to see what he says. I do know, didn't was he the one that converted on his deathbed, kind of thing? Like he was a famous atheist that did a deathbed conversion, and there was a bit of controversy around it because they think he may have
Yeah,
been
it's
pressured.
it was one of those situations where he was experiencing documented mental decline. That's why he,
Yeah,
stepped down from his position and backed off from public life.
yeah.
And shortly before his death, a book came out that he ostensibly co-wrote that was something along the lines of How I Found Jesus, that sort of deal.
Mm, mm,
But there's controversy as to whether he
right.
actually had any input in the book at all, or people were putting
Mm,
words in his
right, right. That's I think that so I ordinarily I'd just go, well, that's a big conspiracy, but there has been documented cases of people being converted when they're in a vulnerable state, or
mouth.
after they have died, the church comes along and said, "Oh yeah, we converted him after he died," which is
I've heard that one too.
wild. That's wild. So, Kip says he confessed to be a theist in his 80s. Yeah, fair enough. Like that's the thing. I don't. I think that these. Oh, you can highlight stuff. Okay. Well,
I have my magic powers
look,
back.
it's a double highlight now. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know you could do that. That's cool. That's cool.
Hell yeah.
I'm impressed. I'm actually really impressed. Okay. Hey, I don't have to highlight comments anymore. That's fantastic. It's all you, Ems. It's all you. You've got it from here. All right.
I mean, I wanted it back for my stream for the 2K thing because it's a feature I've been missing since I've been off of,
Right, right.
the
Yeah.
cloud software and been doing it all through OBS. But yeah, that was one of my favorite things when I had that power before, was I could go on other people's shows and just bring up comments on my own.
Oh, look, I'm happy to throw responsibilities overboard like unicorns off the ark, so
Yes.
that's awesome. That's all good for me. All right, fantastic. Yes, but Anthony Flew. So if I think that sort of saying, "Hey, I used to be an atheist and now I'm Christian," it doesn't annoy me that much. It does sometimes annoy people, and it's kind of like, well, why should I care? I think it goes the other way as well. People say, "Hey, I was a Christian and then I deconverted." I think there's something to it in sort of establishing rapport with people. Sort of, "Hey, I've been where you are," but I don't necessarily like it when people kind of weaponize it. Like sort of saying, "Hey, I used to believe what you believed, and then I had a change of heart," is fine for building rapport or connecting with people. I dislike it when people are going, "Oh, well, I used to be a stupid Christian, and then I found out this as well." So, I think it goes both ways. I think that any sort of pointing to, "Hey, this person converted to Christianity," you can say, "Well, there's a whole bunch of people that deconverted. What are we doing here?" And if you want to go it by pure numbers, more people deconvert than they do convert. So,
Hugely.
yeah. So, I think that it's just sort of a sort of ad populum thing, or just an appeal to authority, like some kind of, "Oh, Richard Dawkins says he's a cultural Christian." It's like, yes, so who
Yeah.
cares?
Sometimes it's a kind of superiority thing. Like, I used to
Yeah,
be an ignorant militant atheist, and then
right.
I discovered the Kalam cosmological argument, and I became enlightened, or some
Has
nonsense.
anyone ever said that? Like, has anyone ever been converted by the Kalam? Like, seriously?
I think Lee Strobel possibly. That guy's
Really?
been converted by everything depending on
Well,
which
that's
interview
true.
you listen to him in.
Right. Because he was the Case for Christ guy, the guy that, like, yeah, I've read that book, right? I've read a Lee Strobel book, and it really was just, oh, a whole bunch of people have a whole bunch of anecdotes about a whole bunch of miracles and stuff, and it's like, wow, that's your case, your legal case is hearsay, and oh, it converted P-Town. Oh, there you go, Robin. Yeah, that's a. I thought the moon
Yeah.
converted P-Town. I thought it was the
The
moon or eclipses
the
or
P-Town
something.
argument is still one of my favorites.
Oh boy, hilarious. Anyway, I'm gonna get this debate up. Have you got any thoughts on the previous one? It's been so long. And that's
It
entirely my
has.
fault.
It's
That's
been a
entirely
minute.
my fault. I think we
Yeah,
can
how
probably
dare
do
you
this one.
debate people and things that
Oh,
we have
look.
always done.
Oh, look. One of them was not worth. I tell you that right now. One of them was not worth. It's funny though. I'm gonna go.
7 hours.
I'm gonna go through and take screenshots because some of the comments and my responses. I gotta. I am sort of tooting my own horn here, but some of it's hilarious. Like some guy just came through and said, "Oh, your picture. You're not that skinny and you're not that ripped." And I'm like, it's a cartoon image. I don't. I you know. And so I put back, I'm ripped enough to open an olive jar of olives, and I thought that was hilarious. I just went, that guy's so mad. Oh dear.
He's very sensitive. I mean, well, I mean,
Yeah.
that was his whole thing. And so, for
Yes.
anybody who doesn't know,
Yeah.
Andrew Wilson appeared on the Whatever podcast, and he's like, "I'm a big, strong man. I'm automatically stronger than any woman because testosterone."
Yeah.
And so somebody challenged both him and the woman that he was speaking to open this jar, and it was like olives or whatever. But
Well,
it's
it
funnier to
wasn't
say
that
it.
exactly. It was you're going to need men in these positions, like sort of all of these positions because only a man's strong enough. Like, what are you like? His gotcha was, what are you going to do if you need to open a jar of olives? What are you going to do?
Yeah. So he challenged, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it. He could not do it. So he's very sensitive about it because he put all his manhood into the ability to open the damn jar, and he could not do it. Male fail.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he tried so hard. It was but no, he was not. No, he was not. But yeah, that's okay. So we've just gone through. We talked for a long time about William Lane Craig's intro and why all of the. He really went through the list of. Did he mention the teleological? The dreaded jar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he did briefly. It's been a minute, but I mean, it's Craig. It's the same 5 arguments every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is Antony Flew, who is ostensibly the atheist. But yeah, and I mean his picture. I was looking for a picture for the thumbnail. Like, I watched a film recently called Nosferatu. Like, the man looks like the gravekeeper. Like, I could not find a flattering picture of the man, and that's yeah.
Well, I thought I was going to have to begin as Socrates ended, with an apology, because I thought I was going to have to explain that I wasn't going to try to show that there is no God.
Socrates famously convicted of corrupting the youth, and was sentenced to drink hemlock, I believe. So yeah, I don't know.
I was going to try.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know he apologized for it.
Well, that was the old school. Weirdly, it's Craig's thing, the whole apologia, which is to give a defense. That's what apologize originally meant, and I think that's what Flew is getting at.
Oh, okay. Oh, a formal defense speech. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep.
To show that there are no sufficient reasons for believing that there is. And Dr. Craig apparently was wanting to maintain the exact opposite, that I wouldn't be able to establish that there is no God, but he thinks he's provided sufficient reasons for thinking that there is.
Right. So, is there sufficient? Is this a burden of proof shift from Craig? Is he sort of saying, hey, you've got to show there is no, because he does that a lot. He's like, there's, you can't show why there is no God kind of thing, or why there is sufficient reasons to not believe in a God, which is weird, right? It's like saying, well, you can't show sufficient reasons why not to believe in a Bigfoot. It's like, well, just the lack of evidence for it is sufficient enough, in my opinion. But yeah, wild.
Yeah, it's that same thing. Like, you, there has to be a Bigfoot for you to not believe in him.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, look, corrupting teenage punks. Maybe they hassled a bald person, Kip. Yes, I caught your stream. That was hilarious. That was really good. I liked it.
Now, he has offered so many arguments that it will be impossible for me in any reasonable amount of time to answer them all. But what I'm going to say, if it's right, will provide a sufficient reason for thinking that he and others are altogether too bold in thinking that they know what caused the universe, or they could know what caused the universe. My fundamental point is that we are all of us creatures whose entire knowledge and experience have been of the universe. It is, after all, the only one there is, and certainly the only one we have experience of. So,
as far as we know.
This is a kind of a weird start. It's sort of, did he just accuse, in a very intellectual way, accuse William Lane Craig of gish gallop or shotgunning his like, I can't possibly address all of his arguments.
Which would make sense, since we took something over
That's
2
true.
hours to address all of his arguments.
That is
I still
true, yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, William Lane Craig does go for that. He'll shotgun stuff, like he'll go through it. But I think sort of, yeah. I don't know. I think that, hey, maybe just try a little. But this is an opening. It's not a rebuttal, right? So why are
Mhm.
you like, get onto your own arguments, Anthony? Like, don't worry about it. Like, get onto your own arguments. Oh, that's something that annoyed me about the Wilson debate. The guy took part of his opening as a rebuttal, and it's just like, dude, what the fuck? But, you know, dishonest people will dishonest, you know.
Mhm.
Why should anyone think that they are able to provide an answer to the question? I take this business about whether God caused the Big Bang or whether the universe just popped into existence like that. Well, why are we offered only 2 possibilities here? Why does anyone think that these are the only 2 possibilities of an answer? I think there are 2 things one needs to say about this. One concerns the ultimates of explanation. So let me try to make this point.
So he's pointing out a false dichotomy. So dichotomies are basically two choices, basically. So you'll have, you know, is your pet a dog or a cat, right? So a true dichotomy is where all options are covered. Like, so is it a cat or not a cat, right? Those are the options. A false dichotomy is one where it's presented as only 2 choices, but there are other choices available. So this is a false dichotomy that either God created it or it popped into existence. That is a false dichotomy. You can show it's a false dichotomy. You're just getting one other option, right? Something else caused the universe. The universe is atemporal at the start, so it's eternal. Like there's all kinds of other scenarios that cover the origin of the universe. So yeah, he's quite correct.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
malformed. To make it a true dichotomy, you'd have to phrase it as something along the lines of either my God created the universe in the way described in the Bible, or he didn't.
Correct. Yes. It was either God or not God. That is a true dichotomy. But God or naturalistic means, that's not, like, if I can say, hey, it wasn't God, but it was the magical Blarney Stone, a supernatural rock that causes universes, then that is something that is not God and it's not naturalistic. So you need to understand that, yeah, so I think a lot of theists frame it this way. It was either natural or it's God. No. Interdimensional aliens is not naturally occurring, and it's also not a god. Like, there's all these other things. And that's not to say that we think it is that thing. What we're saying is you're presenting a false dichotomy. And the reason why it's important is because people will try to use deduction to make God the only available option. And it, you know, so if it was God or not God, if you can eliminate not God, then yes, it will be God, because that's the only other option available. But they try to do these false dichotomies.
Yeah, and it's wild.
Yeah.
You can, a lot of these arguments you can test the veracity of by substituting in something else that sounds ridiculous. It's a trick Plato used to use. You'd blow an argument up to absurd proportions to highlight the flaws in it. And if you take an argument where it could be God and you substitute in something like, say, time travelers from the year 300 trillion who have amazing superpower. The Big Bang caused by time travelers from the year 300 trillion. They went back and caused the universe to be because they had time travel powers. What now? You know, prove they didn't.
Yeah.
Explanation of why anything is the case is given an answer in terms of something else, some very general or more general law, which at that stage is taken as a brute fact, the fact that explains other things. Now, this is surely of the nature of the case. You cannot have an end to all explanation that is anything other than a brute fact, of course. Some people find some sorts of brute facts satisfactory to them, and they think that's a good place to stop.
What do you think about brute facts?
I had been taking them as a philosophical given for some period of time because there didn't seem to be an obvious way to deal with them elsewise. Like they're
Right.
unsatisfactory because
Mm.
they're, by definition, just hanging on nothing. They're just floating there, you
Right.
know? But I recently heard there's like a school of thought that takes a different view on them. I forget what it's called, but it refutes the idea there is such a thing as a brute fact.
Yeah, I generally don't subscribe to it, sort of brute facts. I think there may be sort of properly basic beliefs, things that, because we sort of get them directly, like our senses, for instance, like, they form before our brains can even hold things in our mind. So I think there might be that, but I don't think there's brute facts. I don't really, I don't really think that they're a thing. Usually they are contingent upon something else. But if you want to appeal to brute facts, I think all we have is axioms, things that we agree are at a base level facts. But a brute fact seems strange. It certainly is counterintuitive. Something that doesn't require any necessary state of affairs to happen is very strange.
Yeah, it's I hate to sound like an argument from incredulity because it's not that I'm incredulous. It's that it sounds to me the same flavor of thought-stopping gap filler as infinite regress. Like when they throw up their hands and say, well, you can't have an infinite regress. And then you say, well, why? And they go, well, just because. There's never
Right.
a reason behind it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And it's sort of counterintuitive that we can't have an infinite regress, but like physics doesn't seem to have a problem with it. So who knows? It's very strange.
But it doesn't mean that you're able to say it's absolutely wrong to stop at that point. So it seems to me that you can't rule out the possibility that our knowledge of the universe or our knowledge must stop with the Big Bang, that this itself is the ultimate fact, that if there's any first cause, it's somewhere at the beginning, some microsecond away from the beginning, because after all, everything else...
Well, it'd be shorter than a microsecond, probably be, Planck time, which is much, much shorter than a microsecond. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. How long is a Planck second? It's very, very
I don't even know that it's actually divided up that small. Like it's a theoretical concept of the minimal amount of time, but maybe it has a specific definition.
It is 10 to the power of negative 43 seconds.
Damn.
Yeah, that is a very, very, very short amount of time. Yes.
For context, the smallest increment of time that has ever been measured is a zeptosecond, which is 10 to the negative 21st. So we're looking at 22 additional zeros in the decimal before you get to the 1.
Yeah. So
it's crazy small.
The sort of hypothesis beginning of the universe, if there is a beginning, is 1 Planck second before sort of our current, the expansion rate, the Big Bang, which is the expansion rate, the part where the universe starts expanding. So we can't see, we can see up to 1 Planck second sort of before the presumed start. So we can't see any past there. So that is an incredibly small amount of time, like insanely small.
It's ridiculous. Although the good news is that because of the way time works, when you've got a lot of mass in the same place, it slows because of the...
Yeah.
You can only move so fast through time and space together at the same time. At the same rate, it gets weird
Mhm.
when time is part of the formula. The faster
Yeah.
you move through space, the slower you move through time. But it's not a one-to-one relationship. That's what the Lorentz transformation formula is for, is to figure out how much one affects the other. When the universe was like super, super, super dense, there was all the mass in a very small area, and correspondingly, time ran very, very slowly compared to how it seems to
Mhm.
flow today. So even a zeptosecond was much longer. It was
Yeah.
a bigger period of time than
Right.
we. Yeah.
It's trying to assign discrete values to a tenseless time is wild, because we sort of think about it in terms of the time that we experience on Earth, but that is only relative. So it becomes very hard to say, hey, that is X amount in our time, because time is flowing a lot slower with all that mass around. So yeah, to us it seems that way, but it wasn't. Like it's so hard to wrap your mind around. Space time is weird. It's just weird.
It's
Ember
pretty trippy.
explaining.
In the universe is being explained now. Of course, the whole of cosmology may be different next year, but we're debating in Wisconsin tonight. So one has at least to entertain the possibility that it's not ridiculous popping in out of existence, out of nothing. You know, if someone was there beforehand watching it, they'd say, gosh, it started out of nothing. But, you know, we're just not in a position to answer the question. And the fact that one is unable to suggest a cause for the Big Bang, why should you think that anyone but a physicist is going to explain that? And if physics stops there, isn't that the end of human knowledge? Well, now let's consider the alternative. And perhaps it would be a good idea to begin with...
Antony, the microphone doesn't follow you.
This is really rambling, right? Like okay, so I get what Anthony is saying. I get what Anthony Flew is saying. However, I don't think he's doing it in a way that's very engaging or charismatic. Like William Lane Craig is a lot more charismatic speaker. I will say that. Wow, okay.
That's one advantage that, broadly speaking, the churchy population has over the
Yes.
people who never had the churchy experience,
Right.
because they actually teach charismatism, or whatever you want to call it. Like, that's a thing that you get educated in seminary, because you're supposed to be a leader of peoples as a seminarian, as a pastor, as a whatever, you know? And so
Do
they
we need to
teach
start
you how to do
teaching
that.
Do we need to start doing like deportment and charisma school? Is that what you're saying, Ember? Because like
I've
seriously,
always wanted to go to charm school, but I never got the
charm
chance.
school.
Alas.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, we need to start a bardic college. Okay, we need to start a bardic college.
That's right. Where's Korak? We need bards.
Yeah, yeah. I look. Charisma was my dump stat. Okay, just saying, just saying. Where's Viklich? She'd love that reference. Yep. So yeah, dude, okay. I get what he's saying. He's just not saying it very well. That's all.
Make him speak.
Sorry, I'm confronted with an affliction which I've never been confronted with before. I keep getting a dry mouth. I'm sorry, I'm under considerable handicaps tonight. Yes. Let us actually produce a definition of God, the supposed explanation of everything. Right. This is the definition offered by Richard Swinburne, which is generally accepted as the standard definition within the English-speaking countries. A person without a body, i.e. a spirit, present everywhere, the creator and sustainer of the universe, able to do everything, i.e. omnipotent, knowing all things, perfectly good, a source of moral obligation, immutable, eternal, a necessary being, holy and worthy of worship. Well, that's...
Yeah, my definition is a lot more loose than that, but try to encapsulate. So mine runs along the line of any transcendent agent, the agent just being something capable of making choices, that has the sufficient power to alter or violate natural laws. That's basically mine. And, there's even some problems in there, of how do you tell it's violating natural laws and isn't just using some sort of law that we're unaware. Anyway, but that seems to be the Christian one. I didn't notice any sort of triune nature in there, and I didn't notice any sort of omnis thrown in there. So that's not even classical theism. That seems to be sort of a sort of a very, very broad Christian God, because the whole worthy of worship and things like that, yeah, that's debatable.
Yeah, it is, and as I understand the situation, this seems to be one of the classic mistakes that atheists make when debating theists. I mean, I haven't seen anybody do it in years, but this is from years ago. You make them offer the definition of the God they're proposing. If you bring your own, all Craig has to do is be like, that's not the God I believe in, and boop, your whole thing is off the table. It's wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, Sterling points out that it's Antony, not Anthony. So
Antony.
I stand corrected on that one.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Did I write that in the title? Hang on a second. What did I do? What am I doing?
Did I write that in the title?
Oh, I did.
Oh no!
Oh no!
What have we done?
It is Antony. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I gotcha, mate. I will update the title in 1 second. Give me 1 second, and I'll update it. All right. Just for you. Just for you. Antony flew. Yeah. There we go. I'd say his introduction, his opening is not flying for me. Just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is kind of, I think that the oldest person that I've debated is David McQueen, and that was kind of like, I did feel like I was beating an old man, to be honest with you. Like, I really felt sorry for him. And David McQueen has since passed away. I'm certainly not throwing shade, but, it definitely wasn't him in his prime. I'll give you that. And that's the sort of feeling that I'm getting here, to be honest with you, which is sad, I guess. Poor guy.
A lot of characteristics for this cause that some of the audience clearly think, got it! That's what it must have caused the whole universe. Well, it's a lot of things. It would be perfectly possible that there should be a being that was omnipotent, omniscient, but wasn't particularly interested in human conduct. Of course.
Right. So because he's included morality and things like that, it has to be a personal God. It can't be a deist God. Deist God is sort of one that started the universe running with certain laws and then went, screw it, I've got places to be, and then yeeted out. Like you because he's included all of this moral and worthy of worship and stuff, you're excluding a deist God. And why couldn't a deist God have made the universe? Well, there's no reason apart from it's not your God. Like, it's not the one you believe in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know how. It's a very good challenge to William Lane Craig's false dichotomy. Look, presentation, sucks, but it is actually a good challenge, because William Lane Craig is sort of like, well, you have to believe in a God, spaceless, timeless, personal, creator of the universe, or you have to believe that it came out of nothing. And those are not the only two options. Pointing out a deist God, perfect, because it's not your God and it's not a naturalistic cause.
Yeah, there's a growing group of people who subscribe to a variant of simulation theory where they believe in a divine programmer, which is to say, it's a being much like ourselves that exists in the next universe up, who just, typed in execute on the program that caused the universe. Like
I
they're
have a
completely in a different universe. They're just a
right,
programmer.
right. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I have a lot of thoughts on that because, you know, sort of saying, "Hey, this is a simulation," it carries a lot of baggage. It carries a
Mhm.
lot of baggage and a lot of things that are entailments of that. Number one, go to morality. Why would you listen to that one's morality? Right? I got to make a video on this. God damn it. Like, why would you follow that programmer's morality? Like, it's the whole case of why would the character in The Sims stay in the pool and allow the god to take away the ladder? Why would they obey? The best thing they can do for themselves is probably not obey that programmer. Because, number two, if you're simulating a world, you do not want the subject to be aware that it's a simulation. So the very idea that we can go, is this a simulation, kind of suggests that it isn't. You know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah, it's an adaptation of Descartes. It's if you can doubt it, then it's real. Kind of.
Kind of, yeah. But it's just, if you're running a simulation, the whole idea that we can consider it a simulation is sort of antithetical to simulating it, because if it's not real, you don't want the subjects to think it's not real. So the fact that they believe that it's a simulation sort of suggests that it isn't, to me anyway. And that's not a foolproof thing. It's not like, oh, gotcha, simulation theorists or solipsists, you know, gotcha. No, it's just, that's what it suggests to me, because characters in, say, a computer that we're simulating, they will never be aware they're in a simulation. It's kind of antithetical to the whole thing. So I think that that's definitely one argument I would use to suggest that it isn't. Apart from, you know, why should we worship this thing at all if it is a programmer? Like, it's just might be some incel on their couch in the basement, you know, like programming there. Why should we follow any kind of moral designation, you know, this programmer has?
Yeah, like why if it were an important thing, why wouldn't it be programmed into us? Like we do have instincts.
Right.
Anything that it would require would also be an instinct. It'd just
But
be programmed in.
Right, but those instincts can be gloriously wrong. That's the
Yeah.
thing, you know, like we often sort of react in ways that are aggressive because we think something is happening that's not actually happening, kind of thing. There's a lot of misfirings of instinct, and via evolution that makes a lot of sense. You know, like this whole idea of, well, that person's, you know, saying something there, that's a danger or that's a social impairment to me, I've got to defend myself, kind of thing. That makes a lot of sense. But under a programmer, I don't, you know, I don't know. I don't know. But how can you tell the difference between somebody that is simulating evolutionary pathways and the evolutionary there's no real way. That's why solipsism is just a non-starter, because there is no, thank you for that, you're right. Look, I'm gonna make a video one of these days, and you are gonna marvel at my tangents. Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
People do come here for the tangents.
Look. You should be used to it by now. All right, you should be used to it by now. Look, solipsism is such a freaking rabbit hole. Seriously, it's kind of almost not worth going down. I mean, I do like to think about it, but that's only because I'm weird. I'm very strange, and we'll go in for 7-hour debates. That you know, weirdness confirmed.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. Look, I didn't claim to be perfect.
Everyone thinking of creation.
Oh, in various editions of The Sims, they speculated about the possibility that they're in simulation. All right. Well, did they though? Did they actually think that? It's very hard to tell.
I mean, they were programmed to in The Sims, of course. But I was thinking earlier about the episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation with the Moriarty character who becomes aware he's in a simulation and then tries to take over the ship.
Oh, okay. Look,
once you know you're in a simulation, you're like, okay, so what's real reality then?
Well, look, I'm all for it. If we're in a simulation, I say we take this bitch over. Like seriously, I'm all for it. But
Hell yeah.
I don't think anybody knows.
Is thinking of the first 2 chapters of Genesis. Well, the Creator God there created the whole universe in order to have some human beings created in his image. But why should we assume in this definition of God that he has this interest in human behavior, in morality and so on? And after all, if he was omnipotent and omniscient and wanted people to behave in a certain way, we don't know anything else about him, after all. I don't think we know anything about him. But if we, wouldn't you expect, if you were omnipotent, you'd expect results and expect people to do what? And shouldn't our presumption being looking at human behavior and wondering what omnipotence thinks about it, if we believed in omnipotence, as far as omnipotence is concerned, he's not interested in human behavior. This is, okay, I mean, why should one assume?
I don't think that's particularly a good argument. I mean, they'll just point to free will, right? And say, hey, God doesn't want to tell us what to do, even though he could. Like, he could just program us to do
exactly. Him telling us what to do.
Well, look, he wants to tell us what we ought to do, right? And then leave us up to us to decide whether to do it or not. So that's the whole case for free will, right? That he says
really, really doesn't like shellfish.
Oh, hates it.
Even though he created
Mixed threads.
them.
Nah. God doesn't hold with that fashion. Okay, mixed threads is so passé. It was so 5,000 BC. Like seriously, no, absolutely not. No. But here's the thing. It's like I don't think this holds any real weight because omnipotent. So omnipotent, there's a lot of arguments against omnipotence. Like, forget the logical stuff aside, right? There's a lot of arguments against omnipotence. Like, a God wants us to believe in him, but can't produce sufficient evidence to get us to believe, right? So either the God doesn't have omnipotence, or he doesn't particularly want everyone to believe. One of those has to be the case, right? But when you say, hey, he's omnipotent, so why wouldn't we just believe in him? Well, there's a whole book saying what you ought to do and things that you should do and obligations that you should have. But omnipotence doesn't automatically mean that he wants everybody to do it. I think that if there's anything a theist can point to, it's that God wants to barbecue some folks that don't do what he says. I really think that's the case. You know what I mean? Like
a lot of incoherencies with the entailments. Like, if he's omnipotent and he wants something, it's not possible for him to not get it because he's omnipotent. So either he's not omnipotent, or the thing you're saying he wants, he doesn't actually want. You're speaking for him. You're putting words in his mouth. Or he doesn't exist. One of those.
Yeah. Or there is no God. Yeah, absolutely. Or he just doesn't care. Like, and that's where the problem of evil comes in, the omnibenevolence kind of thing. Like, for God just doesn't care if people are barbecued in hell or go to heaven, then he just doesn't care. Omnipotence only is carrying out whatever he wants. And if he doesn't want anything for humans, then it's not a problem. So I don't think this is a very good argument because it's including the idea that omnipotence wants humans to behave in a certain way rather than sort of telling them what they ought to do and wanting them to make up their own minds, right? So free will would be the trapdoor for the theist here. Mm-hmm. So I don't think this is a good argument. My stats have not gone into wisdom, Austin. I did a 7-hour debate. I would challenge that. Absolutely.
Listen, you can have a very high wisdom stat and still fail a skill check. It
That
happens
is
from time to
true.
time.
That is 100% true. Yes, that is 100% true. But you know, what's the difficulty of that one is not very high. So you know, man, hey, we all roll a one occasionally. Oh, the D&D references. I love it. I love it.
Anyway, these are different things. People don't reckon, but you might well have an argument that might show there was existing a being with some of these characteristics without the others. The second thing I want to say is that these characteristics are at least compatible. But the God that I understand Dr. Craig believes in is one who is described as good and benevolent and so on, but also is described as a being who is expecting that the majority of the creatures he has created, he is going to torture forever. Well, if you think these characteristics are compatible with benevolence, if your absolute value...
Okay, so we've got the not just the problem of evil, but the problem of hell and benevolence. So, okay, that's one to unpack, because so what we consider good and what we consider evil is basically when all entailments of the position have been accounted for, something is good or something is evil, right? So you can say, hey, I went to, you know, boot camp kind of thing, and it was horrible, it was awful kind of thing, but I learned a lot and things, so it was a good thing, right? The whole idea that suffering is automatically evil, or things that are emotively bad is automatically evil is not the case. So it's like the example they use. Well, you go to the gym, you work out, it's you know, it hurts, it, you know, etc., etc., etc. But it's good because at the end of the day, it's healthy and it's good for you and it makes you stronger and stuff. Sure, then that's a good thing. It's when everything is added up. So the theist here would just go, well, yeah, hell's bad for the individual kind of thing, but it is a good thing that people are punished for their sins. Now, this is not me, Tor. I don't think this is not me. Like, I think torture is always bad in my opinion, but this is the out for the theist. They can say, hey, all of this stuff seems bad, but because once we account for everything, it's actually a good thing. Right, so this is the problem Flu's going to have. That William Lane Craig, and we know William Lane Craig is happy to say, well, it looks bad, but all of those children dying was actually a good thing, which he has said. Like, William Lane Craig has leaned into this, and I don't mean like slightly leaned. He's gone full on diving headfirst into, you know, in the Bible, the slaughters of the Canaanites that were written about in the Bible was actually a good thing. And people have challenged him on, well, what about killing all of the children except for the girls that had not known a man? And he's like, no, it was a good thing.
Yep, all the horribleness. It's
Right.
a net positive. It's for the greater good. You just haven't seen the positive yet. No, it was good the children died because they get to go directly to be with Jesus. Oh, so we should just gun down all the children. Dark Matter 2525 made a video about that. Like, Craig goes on a killing spree to save all the children and send them directly to Jesus. And that's the entailment of your argument, Bill. What do you mean? What are you saying?
And that is a really, really, really dangerous place to be, because people have done that before, right? I know there's been one woman in Australia to save her children from sinning. She has stopped them from growing up to sin, let's put it that way. And that is horrific, and she needs help. And this is part of the problem, that when you get into these things in religion, horrible behavior to the indoctrinated suddenly seems reasonable, and it's not, because, you know, so much catastrophic harm is caused. I mean, he's talking about like a majority of people will go to hell. How can God be omnibenevolent? I'm sure the theist would just say, well, it is a good thing that sinners are punished. We just get an exception because of Jesus. You know, but people getting justice is a good thing. Oh, we're sharing. Hang on.
I have the clip.
You are so good. Yeah, absolutely.
It was actually a tremendous blessing to these children for them to be killed and go to heaven and be with God.
Yeah,
we weren't shitting you, folks.
yeah, no, it's famously, and you know, full props to Alex O'Connor for managing to keep a straight face in that horrific thing. I've seen a couple of things pop up about this Catholic AI apologist. I have not interacted with it at all.
Oh goodness, yeah, Matt Dillahunty. I know Justin has debated it from Deconstruction Zone, and I think Alex did also. But I saw the Matt Dillahunty one, and it just
Right.
it's
Terrible.
It's pretty bad. It's
Okay.
like it's super circular. Matt pretty well covers it. He just
Okay.
keeps going with it, and it just goes in circles, like real apologists actually. But
Is it Mecha Hitler?
it is not Mecha Hitler, but it's
Yeah.
very long-winded. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I have not interacted with it. I'll have to give it a try. I think I saw Alex O'Connor's one, but if Matt did another one, I'd love to see that as well. Like, I really would. But yeah, that's horrible. And you know, there was cases where you know, they would give some kind of exception for children, kind of thing, and they ran into a lot of parents, you know, not letting their children grow up. And so they sort of has said, well, we've got to say, hey, you know, children don't get an automatic pass to heaven. It's just such a horrible concept. But here, I just think Flu's argument is not a great one. It's not great, right? Because he can just appeal to free will, and he can appeal to punishing sin is a good thing in the grand scheme of things. That's what he can appeal to.
Values think that torturing anyone at all, apart from forever, is okay. Well, this is not my idea. I regard it as morally compulsive not to torture anyone at all. I regard this concept. I'm not saying this is a reason for not believing that the torturer runs the universe. I am saying that these two characteristics are incompatible. I think, actually, Dr. Craig had...
I think he would have been better to go with, you know, the problem of evil. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, instead of trying to sort of a creator's, you know, treatment of people that have sinned, rather go for, well, what about the natural ills of the world? Viruses, floods, famines, you know, all of these things, these droughts, you know, like why does a benevolent God allow them to happen? And with natural evils, like, you know, all of these events, they can't appeal to free will. Right? They can't say, hey, well, humans have free will, so that's why you are mugged, kind of thing. You know, because an earthquake, presumably, that's the God deciding that to happen. That's not human free will. That's the God going, hey, I'm gonna destroy all your houses and, you know, cause undue suffering, kind of thing. That's him doing it directly. So I think this is a terrible argument. I'm really sorry. It is. There's too many escape mechanisms that they have for this. Wow.
Maybe, and I'm probably giving Dr. Flu too much credit here, but maybe he's laying a trap. He's leaving. So there's a few different techniques in the martial arts where you deliberately leave openings, knowing your opponent will take advantage of them, because then you're effectively controlling your opponent's motions, and you trap them.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to see, but I don't know how he would trap him in this. You know, I don't know, unless he's trying to say, hey, you worship a torturer. I don't know how he's going to trap him in this. And so yeah, it's just when you start to get this, well, sort of justice in the universe kind of thing, like, well, do you want people not punished because that is, locking them up? It's a a violation of their civil liberties, etc., etc. Then you'd have to go, well, no, we have to lock up criminals, kind of thing. He would say, well, God has to punish sin. It is a sort of thing that he has to do. So I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to come up with any kind of trap that someone, I mean, William Lane Craig, he is a good apologist, right? He is actually very, very good at what he does. I would be wary of trying to trap him in because he is a philosopher and he's got a million excuses. So I don't know. I'm struggling to see it, Em. We'll have to see. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Sometimes is a little anxious about these things. I have somewhere, yes. He says, if we take Scripture seriously, we must admit that the vast majority of persons in the world are condemned and will be forever lost, even if in some relatively rare cases a person might be saved through his response to the light that he has apart from some special revelation. He then goes on to indicate, no Orthodox Christian likes the doctrine of hell or delights in anyone's condemnation. I truly wish that universalism were true, but it isn't. Well, I regard that as a sign of grace that he decided. But I still have to say that these two things are simply incompatible. It's a nightmare. And the idea that
So universalism, isn't that everybody goes to heaven basically, no matter what? Like it's just a free pass kind of thing?
I need a definition because there's a lot of different things that could mean. I'm not sure which specific thing he's talking about.
Yeah. So I know that there's sort of another escape plan is annihilationism, which is basically you don't go to hell, you're just removed from God, or you just evaporate into nothing, basically. That it's not actually torture, it's just you just poof kind of thing, like we think happens anyway, So there is that escape. Yeah, so Christian universalism posits that all individuals will ultimately be saved in the broader philosophical discussions about the possibility of universal and moral norms or truths, right? So yeah, that's basically that, hey, ultimately everyone's going to be saved, which I have not met a lot of people that subscribe to that, right? Like it's a very uncommon belief to run across, especially in the YouTube Christian sphere where it's, fire and brimstone and you're going to hell and I'm going to heaven and, I'm superior, mate.
Yeah, the controversial takes tend to sell more, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
such a punishment could be just. Don't you know what justice is? Would it be regarded? Of course, if you like, the right ones are getting the punishment. But justice isn't a matter of simply getting the right ones punished for the crime.
Yeah, Ron brings up a good point. Calvinism, they kind of just bite the bullet and say, God isn't good. He's just God, and he can be a complete dick to people. Like, they just bite the bullet. I mean, there's different views in Calvinism, but that's the one I've run across most commonly. They're like, hey, God does evil. Live with it. Which brings up other questions, like sort of a might makes right kind of thing. Like, he has the right to do so because he's God. It's like, well, that's might makes right, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but some of them are down with that too. They're like, yeah, you should worship and obey because he's much more powerful than you, and you should be afraid. Like, screw this God loves you business.
Yeah. Well, that is sort of more conforms to the Old Testament God, right? It's like, be very afraid because this guy's gonna F you up. It's kind of, yeah.
Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
But Calvinists, they don't believe in free will. They think everything's plotted, that all people that are going to be saved are going to be saved. There's no way to save yourself. You're either going to be saved or you're not going to be saved, which is sort of wild. But hey, it's a weird one.
Look, the punishment needs to be to some extent proportionate to the seriousness of the crime. And how could there be any offense committed by a human being in a short life that deserve a literally infinite punishment. So, what I'm basically trying to show is that there aren't good reasons for believing it. And my fundamental contention is that one shouldn't expect to be able to know things outside the universe and so on. And if you like, the burden of proof.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, but I've got better arguments than this. You know, I've got inductive arguments. I've got, you know, I think the problem of evil's a better argument than this. Definitely. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not. Maybe he's setting a trap. We'll find out, I guess. Sorry, I'm not blown away by this. I'm sorry.
No, I get it. I mean, as I mentioned when we did part 1 a few weeks ago over at my place, this was on Cam from Capturing Christianity's list of 10 most important theist debates ever. Right. And this took place on the 50th anniversary of the Bertrand, what was it? The Russell Copleston debate.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Bertrand Russell was amazing.
Yeah, like Blue may not actually be that great a debater. It may have made Cam's list just because it was on the 50th anniversary. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. Or maybe William Lane Craig comes back and just slaps him down, and he may not. Maybe it's on there because he didn't have a great debate. Great.
It could be. It's the one time when Craig looks like the smart guy.
Yeah. Well, he sure didn't do that against Sean Carroll. I think that Sean Carroll's, absolutely eviscerated him. Hell, Hitchens kept eviscerating him, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Lies on the person who says this. So no number of unanswered arguments from Dr. Craig will be sufficient to leave what I've said on one side. Well, that's no use. I've produced all these arguments he hasn't answered, because no one could answer in the available time all the great long list of arguments he's produced. But what shouldn't be answered, and I think couldn't be answered, is the argument, if you like, against the presumption of thinking that we're in a position to say what was going on, if anything was going on, outside the universe. But let's...
I think that's a stronger argument, that there is no reason to believe that the cause is a god. I know that William Lane Craig has got his, highly modified Kalam cosmological argument, but, we don't know that there was a beginning to the universe. Number two, all of these things he adds on, it must be a personal creator. His argument is so weak on why it's personal. Because something had to make a decision. Really? Does a stone have to make a decision to fall with gravity? There's no reason.
The add-ons are just blind, straight up assertions he's making after his conclusion, which does not lead you to a god.
And it's he's spaceless and timeless. It's well, if there is a greater cosmos, there might be another presentation of space or time or space-time, that there is actually space and time, just not our local presentation. So I think they're incredibly weak. I would probably attack them, as well as did the universe have a beginning? Because we don't know that. And let me give you the tip. William Lane Craig definitely does not know. Definitely does not.
Look at what I believe is called the Kalam argument, which is a great favorite with Dr. The universe must have had a beginning because
there you go. Come on,
nothing
Blue.
can exist without beginning and without end. Fair enough. I think this is a good argument.
No, hang on. No, nothing could exist without beginning and without end. Why? There's sort of, if you look at atemporal states, if something doesn't have any time, it does exist without beginning and without end. It is just okay. All right. And I think I've said before, and Grayson Hawk did a wonderful video debunking William Lane Craig, and it was a fantastic video. Grayson's awesome. It was on, well, nothing really begins. You know, like when we think of, say, my coffee cup beginning, right? Like it doesn't really begin to exist. It is, you know, things change state. So this Aristotelian kind of thinking of, well, something begins to exist. Well, the atoms that made it up were always there. We just change its state. And I'd sort of use a modified ship of thesis to sort of explain this one. When did a ship begin to exist? Is it when it floats? Because the wood floats. Is it when you carve out the hull? Is it when you add the mast? Is if you take off from the dock and go out to sea and then you realize, oh, I forgot the anchor. Was it not a ship? Did that ship not begin to exist if it wasn't complete? No, things just change state. From, you know, the wood being in trees and we change it into a boat. So when did it begin to exist? Some theists argue when you have the concept of a boat. Really?
I mean,
this Neoplatonism
arbitrary point, why not?
Right. But that means that when did a plumbus begin to exist? Plumbus is a made-up tool out of Rick and Morty. When did a plumbus begin to exist? When we had the concept of a plumbus. Really? Okay. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It's pretty special sometimes.
Yeah. You know, so obviously flaxidermy exists because I just thought of it. I have the concept of it, so that much, you know, it becomes absurd what sort of this Neoplatonic, if you think of this thing, it exists somewhere. No, it's just an abstraction. Come on.
In some possible world.
Oh, don't give me that possible world. Like, they do so much leaning on that, and it's like, no, that's doesn't mean it exists somewhere. It just means that that is a alternative concept we can envisage. Boy, possible worlds. They take that way too literally. Let me give you the tip. Way too literally.
I know, it's like they buy into multiverse theory, and it's also self-refuting if you follow the entailments through. But that's a whole other set of tangents.
Right. Yeah. That's too much tangent.
But this is supposed to be an argument for creation by a bodiless person, a notion I find very difficult to understand anyway. All the people I know are creatures of flesh and blood.
Well, run with that. You've got a mind sans a body or any physical structure, right? We have billions of examples, trillions of examples of minds with structures to contain them, i.e. brains. We need to get the example of this being able to exist without a physical structure. Run with that, because that's a good point. The more complex a mind is, the more complex the brain has to be. You know what, I was reading the other day, just slight tangent, that Einstein he had a rather small brain. Did you know that
I've always
when
understood
they
that
studied
it was slightly heavier than average.
It actually was smaller in size, but very heavily crelinated, like, so it had a lot of folds in it. So it was unusual in that way. So I don't know how much weight it was, because size does not necessarily equal weight. But apparently it was small, but very heavily crelinated, like it had a lot of folds. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, so when someone... Yeah, high density. Yeah. So maybe high density. And here's the thing, like, so when someone calls you big-brained, might actually be an insult. Just saying.
But still, that it was created by a bodiless person who apparently was himself uncreated and eternal. Now, it seems to me that I don't doubt the universe had a beginning, because this is the present view of physical science, and it looks as if at least this part of the Big Bang theory is likely to be with us permanently, but there may be some further things added. But surely, if time had to have a beginning, how do we explain that beginning by saying, oh, well, the beginning was started off, the whole universe was created by a being, that being, yes, existed eternally. well, if this argument about time if time couldn't...
Are people yelling at the poor guy?
Maybe it's the timekeeper giving him like a 5-minute warning or something.
I don't know about that one. Hang on. Oh.
If time couldn't have had a beginning, then how is...
I don't think that's the timekeeper. That seems to be people just yelling crap out. I don't like the poor guy. He's struggling already. Give him a break, seriously.
Yeah, I can't make out what they're saying, but I mean, hecklers, maybe.
Hecklers at a debate. Okay. I've never experienced such a thing, but you know, online it might be a bit different. Okay, wow.
That as it were, there's a funny sort of time.
I choose to believe they're yelling out, "Show us your boobs." That's what I choose to believe.
Of which, of course, none of us have ever had an experience, which, well, yes, of course, this never had a beginning and it will never have an end. You know, simply won't do. The argument that gets us to the creation is inconsistent with the desired explanation of it. So I think, again, we come back to a decent ignorance.
Well, that doesn't address the kalam, because it's you know, things that begin to exist must have a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. Now you can attack the second premise. You can attack the universe began to exist, right? You can attack that. But that's not attacking the kalam. It sort of is assuming that you know, it's sort of going to, well, God must have begun to exist. Well, that's not attacking the kalam. That's attacking something different. So I don't think he's actually addressing it.
Yeah, it's a subtle distinction, but it's an important one, because if you don't disassemble the argument, then it gives Craig the ability to just pivot, shift something else in there, or whatever the case may be. And I don't know, there's so many flaws built into the kalam, like the fact that things that begin to exist must have a cause. Well, first of all, we know that's not true from quantum physics. Second of all, there are very few things in reality that have only one single cause.
Correct, yeah.
And so to posit that you can determine there must be one ultimate single cause behind all causes that itself is somehow uncaused, as if that made sense, it's beyond absurd. But there it is.
I'm often thought to be a rather arrogant chap. How wrong people can be. But I've never believed that I could give you a sort of guidebook outside the universe. I'd be a bit hard-pressed to give you a guidebook to a fairly small area. But you know, this idea that, well, you know, we can here's a group of rational chaps, and let's expect that they can all...
Well, there's an English sentence, everyone. Oh, we're a group of rational chaps. Yes. And that's not, like, what are chaps in American? Isn't that like leather that you wear for riding horses? That's, if nobody's aware of it, that just means fellows, people, men, essentially.
I haven't seen anybody wear chaps outside of a strip club in ages. Even people I know who have horses.
I'm sure they do in rodeo, right? Isn't it standard rodeo wear? Is my like vision, has my assumptions of American cowboyism been completely ruined now? Chaps aren't a thing.
I mean, well,
yeah.
They probably do at rodeos. I just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't get rodeos at all. They're weird. They're very strange.
It's 8 seconds of action and then 10 minutes of commercials. It's worse than American football.
Wow. Yeah, no, I never seen it, never watched it, never really wanted to. Yeah, I don't know. They have clowns. That must be a little fun.
They do.
Yeah.
I considered that job when I was little because I was very good at running away from things. I was
a rodeo clown.
very fast. Yeah.
There you go.
Recognize an argument showing that this is how the universe began, and we know something about what must exist behind the universe. I don't think it will work at all, this thing. Then, what about this?
So I think that he is focused too much on himself, right? He's focused too much on, well, I don't think this or I don't think that. It should be a challenge to the opposition. It should be Dr. Craig has to show how he knows this and how it is true, right? That it couldn't be a group of gods or a god that doesn't care or some other kind of thing. He's got to eliminate any possibility, like, because William Lane Craig is kind of using a deductive argument. He's kind of saying, hey, the universe couldn't have come in from nothing, so it's got to be a god. I would really challenge him to say, hey, if you're going to make that deductive argument, and it is deductive, it's taking away, well, a universe can't come from nothing, so therefore it must be a god. But as I've said before, that's a false dichotomy. You should be challenging him, saying, hey, show that it's not magic, show that it's not a group of gods, show that it's not any of these other possibilities, including the ones that we haven't thought of, right? Because you have to deduce so much and deduct so much to get to one specific god. But he shouldn't be going, oh, I think this. He should be saying, hey, Dr. Craig has got to actually show that it couldn't be magic, or it couldn't be, what does Matt Delhunt use? A universe farting pixie or something. Really jam it home that like, show it's not the Blarney stone, a magical stone. I've used that in debates before. It's my little go-to. It's a stone that's magic, can do literally anything because it's magic, but isn't an agent. It isn't a mind. And theists have accused me, and I think it was Wi-Fi Gospel last time. He's like, oh, you're just replacing God with a stone. And it's like, no, it's not an agent. How can it possibly be a God if it can't make decisions? All it does is instantiate and, provide intelligibility for the universe. And then he's like, well, okay then. And it's like, yeah, you can't show it's not that. So that's where you challenge the other person to show that it's not your example. It's called a reductio ad absurdum. So what you're basically doing is putting a contrary in their argument. In this case, I'm replacing God with a magic stone and showing that it works exactly the same as their argument. But it's a contrary, so it makes it absurd, because you can't have both. You can't have a God that is a free-willed agent making decisions on behalf of us and creating the universe, and a magic stone that creates the universe. It can't be both.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be like, the stone in the example is just a potential alternative explanation. It's standing in for a near infinity of other potential possible explanations as well, like nil, or the universe creating pixies, or the time travelers from the year 300 trillion, all of those things. They could all fit in that Mad Libs fill in the blank space in the argument the apologist is using.
Well, I mean, yeah, Phantom. So it can't, like, I guess it basically, it can't do anything, but it basically it accounts for anything we see around us, right? Like, so anything that we see, that's the stone doing it. So yeah, I get what you're saying. If it can do anything, then it can think. No, it can't do that. But it is the cause of the universe and provides intelligibility of the universe through magic. That's it. I guess magic can do anything rather than the stone itself.
The stone is just the focus for the cosmic magic.
Sure, why not? Why not? Why not? And this is the thing. It's just, I really, when Alex just went, oh, well, okay, then, it's like, well, then that's your entire argument blown out of the water, because he's arguing of the impossibility of the contrary, which is what a deductive argument is. It's basically saying, well, it's either this person or not this person. I've eliminated all the other people, then it must be this person, right? Like that is basically a deductive argument. You eliminate and then you're left with one. If you can provide an example that they can't eliminate and say, well, okay, then that's their entire deductive argument blown out of the water. I use the stones to destroy the stones. How dare you? Thanks, Thanos.
My contention that an omnipotent being could perfectly well, if he wanted people to behave in a certain way, if this was the only thing that would content him, that they became his devoted and obedient children, well, why didn't he make them that way? You know, ordinary human parents would love their children to be obedient and virtuous and so on. Wouldn't we all who've been parents? And we're all, I suspect, and you may have done better than us, but we've been rather unsuccessful. They're terribly good people, but they're far from obedient and far... See what I mean? Well, now, but granted the resources of omnipotence, I think I could manage this. But
yeah, I don't think this is particularly compelling. Just the free will thing. It'd be better to sort of go to maybe make a reference to the Bible of all the horrible things that God has done. I just don't see this as particularly compelling. I think sorry, go ahead.
It's very strange. I can't imagine that debate has advanced and evolved so far in so few years, which makes me suspect that Dr. Flu is just not very good at this.
Or he's just getting really old. I mean, I see him putting stuff together, but there's a lot of sort of ums and ahs and sort of really hesitantly putting it together. I mean, your mind does degrade as you get older. I have no idea how old he is here. No idea. I don't know. Maybe we should try and find an earlier debate of his and do a comparison. It would make me sad. It certainly would. But yeah, I'm kind of unimpressed. I got to be honest with you.
Apparently, the God whom Dr. Craig is asking us to believe as the creator very much wants people to believe in a certain way. Indeed, he wants this so much that he's prepared to torture them forever for punishment by not obeying me. Well, it seems to me that anyone who knew that that was what this cosmic Saddam Hussein wanted would behave like sensible subjects of Saddam Hussein. They'll say anything about his merits and goodness. Oh, yes. Well, wouldn't you if you were going to fall into the hands of his torturers? But omnipotence could avoid all this by simply making them creatures such that they would choose to obey him. How nice.
Yeah, that's if he wants them to obey, but you've still got the free will as trapdoor there. You basically, well, he wants them to have free will more than he wants them to obey.
That's an interesting thought. What if God has two conflicting desires?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does he just throw them both into the universe and let reality sort it out?
I think that, well, I mean, like I would imagine, and we're trying to talk about something that obviously is not human, but humans have desires, but they are conflicting desires. Like I might want to go and eat a stack of pancakes, but I also want to go to the gym. And there would be a desire priority based upon what you want to set ostensibly. So, while it might be great to eat the pancakes, I might know that it's better for me to go to the gym, right? Like that might be a priority distinction. So I don't see why we would say that God, wants people to obey, but he also wants them to be able to make their own choices in their life and doesn't want to compel them to obey because that isn't a choice. I don't see why that's a problem, that he prioritizes people having choices higher than wanting them to obey.
Well, I might be able to put it into a different kind of context, perhaps,
Sure,
like
sure. Go
from my
ahead.
own experience.
Mm,
I really, really want romance in my life,
yes.
but I also don't like many people. Like, I don't want a person in my life. It's so they're in
Okay.
conflict. I can't
Right.
I can't make it so that I can have both. It can't be
Right.
one or the other. It can't be one after the other. There's just a conflict. And that seems to be that sort of situation here where God is saying, I want you to freely choose to obey, but I also want you to obey, and I will torture you forever if you don't. Like it's you can't have the free will and the coercion,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I guess with that, I would sort of go to steelman it that God is omniscient, so he knows the outcomes of all possibilities. So, I think that, like, don't get me wrong, I really think that it's a problem that he wants people to obey, but doesn't provide enough evidence. Like, let's put that aside, right? Like, he doesn't provide enough meaningful reasons to actually believe in him, much less obey, right? Let's put that to one side for the moment, because I think that's a killer argument. I think that he could go, well, everybody deserves to be punished. These things, they are, and let's put aside for the moment that, Flu's argument for eternal torture, is it warranted? Just say that it is. Okay, let's just grant that it is warranted, that sinful people, it is just and good that they're tortured for eternity. I don't believe that, but let's just assume that for a second, right? The whole idea is he can want people to freely be saved more than he wants them to be saved, right? Like, he wants people to be able to decide for themselves. So I guess he could prioritize that. Like if you want people to freely decide to be saved, I don't know how you would square that away with create them in a way that they have no choice.
Maybe this is God's effort to answer the challenge of another God or Satan or something, to say, hey, you say you're all powerful. Let's see you create a stone so heavy you can't lift it. It is a paradox. And so the universe was instantiated as a way to resolve that paradox in these
Right.
two divine immovable objects, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't see a problem with conflicting desires as long as one is prioritized over another. I don't see a problem with that. It's just one desire would override the other one.
Yeah, in standard practice, absolutely. Like, I really like food, but I also want to lose weight. So one has to have the priority,
Yes, yeah. And so I would assume that God's priorities would never change, because he is, according to William Lane Craig, he is timeless, spaceless, etc. So I would assume his priorities wouldn't change. I'm struggling to see the problem here. I really am. No, I think it's a load of rubbish. I think that a much better argument. Okay, so let's go to a much better argument, right? That God wants people to obey him. Well, people have to believe in the God and in hell before they obey him, right? And he wants people to believe because he wants them to obey. Okay, now regardless of whether they have free will to choose him or not choose him, it has no impact on whether they believe in him. But he is not giving sufficient reasons, and as an omniscient God, he would know he's not giving sufficient reasons to justify a belief in him, much less obeying him. So why doesn't he give more evidence, is the one that I would go down.
Yeah, that goes more towards divine hiddenness, but as many people have pointed out over the years, Satan, Lucifer, whatever, knew for sure God was real and still exercised free will.
Right.
So he doesn't have to be hidden to deprive you of choice.
Correct. Like, you can still freely choose. If you know the God exists, you can freely choose to obey him or not, because all the angels and Satan and Lucifer and whatever did that. And I might add that he has given people better reasons to believe before, like the burning bush or the Damascus Road experience that Paul had, kind of thing. He's given people much better reasons to believe than what has been offered to the rest of us unwashed masses. So it isn't a problem of free will if he shows us that he exists, because he's done that for other people before. So how can an omnipotent God, it would be trivial to do so. It would be nothing. He's all powerful. It would be absolutely nothing. So why wouldn't he do that? Either, number one, he's not omnipotent. He can't do that. Number two, he doesn't want everybody to believe. Because if an omnipotent God wanted everyone to believe, they would believe he exists. There would be no way around it. Now, Antony's on whether people would obey him or not. I think that's a much weaker argument. That's so much weaker argument. Go for the belief, right? Why don't people believe that he exists? Because he wants you to believe and is omnipotent. Oh, hi, Dave. Like, yeah. Because they can just say, hey, he wants you to have free will, and that's the argument over. That's it. I don't, I'm not.
Next.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah.
This is an argument which I think may give Dr. Craig a little pause. Yes. What can we do?
I'll give a pause, Antony. I'll give a pause.
Yes, about design. Everyone has heard of the argument to design, about how if we found a watch in the bush, we'd infer that this was the product of design and so on. But surely the reason why we infer that something was made by an intelligent being is not the complexity, it's simply that it is an artifact, obviously an artifact and not a natural phenomenon. The most complicated, sophisticated entities in the whole universe are entities of the sort of which I see about 3,000 around here. And they were not, at least within the universe itself, designed. They were, at least within the universe itself, we were, products of unconscious physical and mechanical forces. This argument for design within the universe, the argument from design outside the universe is another one, and I won't try in the remaining 30 seconds to deal with that one now. Another time, another argument.
Well, I mean, he put it on the table at least. I personally would have spent the majority of my time on design out of the things he brought up, because it's a great way to demolish. Like, you can get to the Laplace conjecture so easily through the design argument. And, you just cover the basics of how natural law covers things. And we have no need for a God hypothesis.
Is the Laplace conjecture like my model has no need for a God kind of thing? Is that sort of what?
Yes.
That is right. Sorry, I didn't know that one. Laplace conjecture. Yeah, and so a good place to go is, well, what isn't designed? And I think that he was on the verge of doing that one. Like, so ostensibly, we have the universe around us and it hasn't been designed. But the problem is that William Lane Craig thinks it has. He thinks it has been designed, right? That's the problem. That you're saying, hey, we've got all this universe around us that isn't designed. Well, he thinks it is. That's the issue. But that raises an important point. How do you tell the difference between something not designed and something designed? Because you've got no examples of something that isn't designed in William Lane Craig's worldview. Everything has been designed. So you don't have nothing to compare it to, because you think that simple rock is designed. I was surprised. My last debate with Brian Lara, like I said, what isn't designed? And he's like, something simple like a rock. And I'm like, a rock's not designed by God? Like, it's very strange seeing a theist lean into, hey, there's parts of the universe which weren't designed by God.
Well, it's a catch-22 for them when they make that
Sure.
argument, because you have to offer something that's not designed, or you have to concede that you have no means to tell what's designed.
Correct. Yeah.
And so he could only go one of two ways. He could go, well, yeah, everything is designed, and thereby admit he has no way to tell what's designed, or he can give you something that's not designed, and thus undermine his argument that everything is designed, which is why it's a bad argument. But people keep making it, and I don't understand why.
Well, it also leads down a wild, like, I didn't have time to go into it, but it also leads to its own entailments. Like, if God's omniscient, he knows the outcome of every single possibility. So when creating the universe, he knew that that rock would be the way it is and designed the universe for that outcome. So how is that not design? If he knows that that rock will be that way and designs the universe accordingly, he kind of designed the rock. Just saying.
Yeah, if every outcome is inevitable, and ostensibly everything that isn't directly affected by free will is, because it's governed entirely by the laws of physics,
yes,
then the rock would be an inevitable consequence of the way the universe was designed. And also, he could have tweaked the universe and made it ever so slightly different, so the rock came out differently, if he wanted to.
And JLK calls it the problem of distinction. What is designed from non-design under their view? Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good name for it, problem of distinction. Yeah. So it's sort of like this problem of and sort of so design things. And Matt Delahunt, he makes a really good argument, and about a beaver dam. Like, we don't know that it's designed by beavers or just formed naturally until we go up to it and have a look. Like, we can't tell. And it's a really good argument because, things that we think are designed, like I brought up, for instance, I think in that debate, like there's rocks with holes through them, right? And we used to call them hagstones, and people used them as protective charms because they thought that witches were causing these stones to have a hole in it. It's actually caused by a river. It just, the natural physics causes a hole to be bored through it. It's not designed. It's just naturally forming, just under certain conditions. So we have a lot of problem telling design from non-design, and theists even more so, apparently. So, yeah.
You'll remember in my first speech, I argued that there...
So this is William Lane Craig's rebuttals, I presume.
First rebuttal, yes.
First rebuttal. Okay, how many rebuttals do we have?
I forget, but the whole thing is an hour and a half, and they do have decreasing intervals. So I think this is 15, and then they get like 8 minutes, 5 minutes, and then 4 minutes for close, something like that.
I like big rebuttals, and I do not lie.
Are no good reasons to think that atheism is true, and that there are good reasons to think that theism is true. Now, I asked Dr. Flew to give us good arguments to show that God...
Hold on. He's already jumping headfirst into fallacy land, because atheism is not a proposition that is true. It's a state of belief within a particular person. It's, I am not convinced of any particular God.
Depends how you're using it.
I am atheist.
Depends how you're using it. Like, William Lane Craig will absolutely stick to the philosophy of religion definition, which is a negative position. So basically, no gods exist is the philosophy of religion position.
Even if we were to grant that, and he should specify his definitions if that's what he means, because it's not the most common usage, but details. I'm still not sure that would qualify as a proposition that could be true, because it's a negative statement.
Well, so I mean, it is a proposition. Any statement is a proposition. So no gods exist is a proposition, right? Like it absolutely is. Atheism is, either way you cut it, a doxastic state. It's basically a state of belief. It's a mental state. So you don't have to prove a God doesn't exist in order to believe a God doesn't exist, any more than I have to prove a Bigfoot doesn't exist in order to believe that Bigfoot doesn't exist. So it's not a requirement of atheism. I think it is enough to say, hey, we should expect evidence of Bigfoot and we don't find it. Therefore, I'm warranted in thinking that Bigfoot doesn't exist. Exactly the same is true of a God. But in philosophy or religion, agnosticism is saying, hey, I'm suspending my belief on the question because I don't have evidence. That would be agnosticism. So it would be saying, hey, I don't believe in a God. I don't believe that no gods exist, and it's just neutral. I realize that that's not common parlance. That's how philosophy of religion uses it. But I mean, I would fall into atheist under either category. I think it is enough to say, even just to say, hey, we should expect all of this evidence of a God. As I said before, that argument saying, hey, if God wants us to believe and is omnipotent, we should have more than what we have. Therefore, I'm justified in believing that that God does not exist, right? Like, so you have sort of local atheism, which sort of says, hey, this particular God, like the Christian God, is a bullshit, right? Like that is, you know, that particular one, that's local. Global says, hey, I don't believe any gods exist. I have arguments for both. But it's important to understand how William Lane Craig is using it. He's asking for arguments against the God. Fine. Okay, if he wants to do that, friggin' fine. But he's sort of saying, hey, you didn't offer some. Yeah, he did. He did, didn't he?
In a very roundabout way, yes.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
he could have been so much more clear. But the reason I mention it is because, first of all, going with the most common definition, what people are likely to assume he means,
right.
He's off in fallacy land. And the second is because there are multiple meanings, he could be setting up a later equivocation.
Yeah, but he is kind of shifting the burden of proof at least a little. You know, like he is the one with the positive claim. So, you know, so we get a lot of this in like Karl Popper went into falsifiability a lot. Like you're making the positive claim. If I say, hey, I've got an invisible, it's Sagan's dragon, I've got an invisible immaterial dragon in my garage kind of thing. It's not really on you to give arguments of why that is not so. Right, the positive claim is the one that should have the burden of proof. And if no sufficient evidence is coming, you are justified for believing that claim is actually not true. Right, so if you say, hey, there is a God, and I say, well, show me evidence of it, and you have none, I think you are justified, just with Bigfoot or just with the invisible dragon, you are justified in saying, well, I believe it does not actually exist.
Right. There is a distinction between rejecting the claim and denying the claim.
Right.
But in such a circumstance, yeah, it's more than warranted. You know, you can make your counterclaim. This thing does not exist. You ground it by saying there should be positive evidence for it that isn't here, and then you warrant it. You connect the ground to the claim by saying if the thing were real, we'd have this evidence, which we don't have. That is proof positive. It doesn't exist.
Yes. And it's antithetical to everything we understand about physics, everything we understand about the world around us. I think that sort of presenting the lack of evidence with the contrariness to what we experience around us is enough justification for that belief. Can you know that there is no God? No, you can't show it completely. You can't prove it like you prove things, but that's not what is justified for belief, right? Like all you need to be an atheist is just believe there is no God under his definition. You don't need to, you know, show absolute certainty, right? All you need to do is say, well, there's no evidence for it. It goes against everything I understand about physics, everything I understand about the world, and all we have are claims. I am justified in believing no gods exist. That's it. Prove me wrong. Prove that belief is wrong.
Yeah, go for it. It'll be fun. But yeah, he is setting up a false equivalency with it. He's doing a Hovind. It's got more sophisticated wording, but it boils down to the same argument. He's saying, "Oh, I believe in a religion, but you believe in a religion too, and neither of our religions should be taught in schools." Like, that's not how that works, my guy.
And no one's teaching atheism in school. That's the thing. Like, no one's teaching that.
We did.
Well, might be a bit better off, but you know, but nobody's doing that. Nobody's sitting the kids down and saying, "Hey, there is no God." We're simply teaching them about the world around us, which unfortunately for Hovind includes evolution. But I don't think William Lane Craig takes a position on evolution. I think he kind of says, "Well, I don't know," which is kind of pretty weaselly in my opinion.
It is, yeah. He tends towards a evolution is fine type deal.
Yeah.
But he doesn't make a strong stand on it. He's like, that's out of my field or whatever. And I mean, a lot of Weasley apologists do shit like that. Like last week we were watching Frank Turek do his 2-step, and he did the same thing. Like one of his own followers, his loyal people, point blank asked him, how old do you think the Earth is? And Frank's just like, well, I can't, I don't know. It's not my area. I know all the answers about everything because it's in my magic book, but I don't know that one.
Yep. I can tell you where the universe comes from. Can't tell you how old the Earth is. Yeah. No, good one.
Yeah.
Good one. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, William Lane Craig has argued that Big Bang cosmology fits perfectly with God before. He kind of tries to hijack science to give himself more credibility. And you know, spoiler alert, it doesn't. It so doesn't.
Does not exist. As I listened to the first speech, I basically distilled 3 arguments that he offered. Number 1 is that if God is omnipotent, then why don't things turn out as God wills? It seems to me that the answer to that question is evident, namely, God's omnipotence does not mean that he can do things that are logically impossible, but it is logically impossible to make someone freely do something.
No.
Okay, so omnipotence, I don't think omnipotence technically has the entailment of, you know, I think omnipotence, you can do things that are logically impossible. You're not restricted by logic at all.
If it's omnipotence,
yes.
Logic is your bitch. You can, I mean, that's what magic is you do things that are not possible, logically or otherwise. But also he's wrong on the basic level. You can compel people to do something freely, even though it's a compulsion. You know, like, take bribery, for example. You know, I will give to you a sufficient amount of money to cause you to freely alter your decision in my favor, you know?
Yeah, I thought they went to maximally powerful to basically have that loophole to say, because there's the omnipotence problem, like, can a god create a rock that's too heavy to lift, right? And it's a logical contradiction. So I think they went to maximally powerful to get around that, you know, because if you're not in command of logic, then you're not omnipotent, in my view.
Right. Or the source of logic. It's neither, it's not from within him. It's not a thing he can control if he has to be obedient to it.
Right. So maximally powerful is what they went to say, hey, he operates within logic, you know. So he's maximally powerful. He's as powerful as can be, as long as it's not logically contradictory.
And then we run into the entailments of the morality situation. You know, it's the same thing. If there is another force outside of God that's shaping his actions, then he's not actually the ultimate power. That thing is.
Yeah. And I mean, I've got an argument against the Trinity for that reason. Like, if you're omnipotent, then you should have control over everything. If you don't have control over the other branches of this trinity, then you're not omnipotent. But they're each separate three thing is considered to be omnipotent. So it's like, yes, but they don't have control over each other, which means that you're not omnipotent. There's something outside of your control. I don't know. It's really weird. But
it's like a Google Doc that 3 friends can edit. You can do anything you want to the doc, but you can't do something to the other editors.
Yeah, so free will, I don't think that when we're talking free will, it really covers whether somebody is compelling you to do it in the normal sense, like sort of persuading you in any way, right? It's literally like you don't have free will over your breathing, for instance. You're going to breathe, right? Except if something horrible happens. But you know what I mean? Like, that is something you don't have free will over. You cannot, like, you can choose to hold your breath, but eventually you're going to breathe. Or for your heart to beat, for instance, like, you don't really have control over whether that happens or not. So that's sort of what we're talking about with free will. Or I don't have free will to disobey gravity kind of thing. I think with something like a bribe, you still do have free will. You are being compelled to do it, but you still have that choice of whether to do it or not. I think, unless, of course, you are a hard determinist and then you say, hey, nothing is free will. So, but that's a whole nother tangent that I'm not willing to get into. But I think that what they're talking about is that, like, taking away free will. So as far as sins are concerned, so thou shalt not steal kind of thing, you literally cannot bring yourself to do it. Not just that it's wrong, but you can still choose to do it. But you literally, like, stealing something is like jumping to the moon. It is impossible for you. And I think that some things like magic, you said, it disobeys logic. It doesn't really. It's physically impossible, but it's not logically impossible. Logical impossibility has an entailment that it defines. So if you say, if magic is able to do anything, therefore, there's a couple of premises there and a conclusion, then magic accounts for everything. There's no problem logically. Physically, sure, absolutely. But logically, not really. Oh, have we got some hate in the chat? It's funny.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I've always said, you've done well in a debate when people have to tell you how badly you did, when all their supporters flood in. It's hilarious. If they did so well, why do you have to say anything at all? Sounds like cope to me, but never mind.
Yeah,
Never mind.
Libertarian freedom entails freedom from causal restraints. And therefore, if we are truly free and God is willed to create free creatures, then he cannot guarantee how free creatures will choose. In other words, Dr. Flu's fallacy is thinking that because there are logically possible worlds in which everyone always does what God wants, that those worlds are feasible for God to create. But it may well be the case that any time God would try to create such a logically possible world, the creatures would freely go wrong and would not do what God wants. And even an omnipotent being cannot make someone freely do something. So I think...
Yeah, I kind of do agree with them. The whole idea of making somebody freely do something seems logically, it doesn't work. Because if you're programmed to do something like we're talking about simulation theory, if the sim, you program him to do this, how is he freely choosing to do it? Like, if you leave it up to the program, in the Sims, where basically if you leave them for a while, they'll go off and do their own thing, right? They'll make their own decisions kind of thing, as opposed to clicking on an item and saying, hey, go do this kind of thing. I don't know how you would, like, tell them to do something freely. It doesn't seem logically possible.
I can come up with some ways that would work, but it could get into a long tangent. So I'll just...
It could,
Boop.
Yeah. And I just want to say, fuck you in the chat. Look, Amber's my mate, and she'll always be so. You can get out of here, seriously.
The first argument is simply fallacious. Secondly, he argued that the doctrine of God's love and justice is incompatible with the doctrine of hell, particularly because the punishment is not proportionate to the crime.
Right.
Well, let me say two things about that. First of all, this isn't the topic of the debate this evening. The subject of the debate is the existence of God. What this argument would show is that the doctrine of hell is false, not that God does not exist.
Wow, what a dodge. Okay.
I didn't think that man could tap dance that fast.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think that, you know, showing that, hey, your doctrine of God, this is sort of, what is it, the Mott and Bailey kind of thing. He's got this God that has all of these entailments, and he wants you to obey, and in hell and heaven and all these different things, and the Bible has this kind of thing. And when he pointed out the contradictions in them, saying that, hey, that's a reason to believe your God is not true, you go, well, that doesn't disprove any God. It's like, hold on a second. You ascribe all these things to a God. Give me 1 sec. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to, I know I forgot to, there we go.
Buttons and things.
Yeah, I'm just going to turn on subscriber only moment, because F you. F you. Yeah, I think that sort of, you know, yeah, he's not wrong, but at the same time, you're not defending your God. You're going to deism or some Calvinist idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's the infinitely moving goalposts, and they'll move as far as they have to, so Craig can just declare, I'm still right. You haven't disproven my thing.
Right. I'm going to go back to some kind of, you know, nebulous God that doesn't have these same entailments, which is weird, and I can't help but feel it is a bit of a dodge, to be honest with you.
But in fact, as a Christian theist who believes in the doctrine of hell, let me say something in defense of it anyway.
Oh, okay.
Number one, this is related to the problem that we just mentioned a moment ago, namely, people freely separate themselves from God forever. It isn't that God sends people to hell. Rather, it's that people freely reject God's grace and forgiveness, and so they separate themselves from God forever. If eternal punishment were for finite sins in this life, then I agree it would be disproportionate. But the biblical view is that people of their own free will reject God and his forgiveness, and so they separate themselves.
Wait, so people, is he seriously using, God doesn't send people to hell, people send people to hell? Is that seriously what he's doing?
It's a popular argument, and he's a popularizer of apologetics, I guess.
Right,
so maybe.
Wow. Okay. Number one, it still has the problem of omnibenevolence or maximum benevolence. A good God wouldn't stand aside and let that happen when simply forgiving people could be fine. Ultimately, God is a judge as well. Right? He judges people on whether they should go to heaven or hell. So that doesn't get you out of it, because he's the one to make that decision of whether they deserve heaven or hell. So I think that argument is terrible. You know, or God doesn't judge souls. It's wild. This is wild. But how could a good God stand aside and let that happen? Oh, but he provided Jesus. Yes, but why would he need to? It's weird. This is a weird argument.
And there's a shit ton of internal contradictions with that too. Like the whole thing, it just it drives me batty. Like Jesus is like, follow me, I bring the eternal life. But the reason original sin existed is Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden specifically to keep them from having eternal life. Yahweh specifically forbid humans from having that. And here comes Jesus saying, hey, I got the thing that y'all have been denied. It's like, what are we doing? And even better, I found out from that Matt Dillahunty with the AI Catholic thing. According to Catholic doctrine, Mary was specially created, uncorrupted by original sin. This is how she was able to carry Jesus. But the thing that my mind short-circuited that no one apparently has brought up this implication before. If God can do that, if he can just make you without original sin, then what the fuck is Jesus for?
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's
if you
wild.
Can't do that, then what the fuck is Jesus for?
No idea. Well, I mean, you wouldn't want to raise a Messiah in a sinful womb, right? That would just not be done. Really? Look, I would take a different tact. I would say like Jesus's embryo sanctified the womb. Like, just what are we even talking about? Look, you know, I would also think that story's bullshit, because if Jesus kicked, you know, in the womb, it would have just blown out Mary's stomach, you know, like seriously. Let's be fair. That's I don't know. Where has my mind gone? This is William Lane Craig just makes your mind into cheese, like seriously. Dude. Wow.
It's a special day. It's a very special time.
Well, in order to make this work, he'd have to argue that a benevolent God could stand by and allow torture. And I don't think that works either. Just saying. Hey, human girl.
From God forever. Second point I'd like to make is, if a person committed an infinite number of sins, then he would deserve eternal punishment. Now, no one obviously commits an infinite number of sins in this life, but what about in the afterlife? Insofar as the damned in hell continue to hate and reject God, they continue to sin, and thus they incur further punishment. And thus, in a real sense, hell is self-punishment.
Are you saying the people tortured in hell should thank God for the privilege?
I think he's saying, he may not even realize he's saying this, but I think he's saying it's on the people in hell to forgive God for their torture. And if they can let go of that anger, that revengeful feeling of injustice, then they'll be forgiven. Like, first you got to forgive me, and then I'll forgive you.
That's some hardcore Stockholm syndrome. I gotta say, that's not a real thing. It's just a popularized thing. But wow, like God put me in hell. Oh no, sorry, I put myself in hell. That's so ridiculous. Like seriously, you've got to love God in hell. I've never heard that before. I've never heard that.
Thank you, Lord, for torturing me for all these millennia. I love it so much. This is how you get kinky souls, you know.
But why then would you have to convert before you die? I think he's unraveling like centuries of Christian theology, because the whole thing is after you die, it is too late. If you die in your sins, then you are condemned to an eternity in hell. And now he's saying, hey, you don't have to convert, just if you get to hell, love God, and then you've got a free escape plan. This is bewildering.
It's a variant of that universalism that came up earlier.
Right.
Yeah, everybody eventually escapes hell as soon as they forgive God. And on an infinite time scale, when you have an entire eternity, eventually everyone does.
Yeah, which is wild, because, you know, the whole idea in Christian theology is convert before you die, because after then it is too late. If you die in your sins, you are condemned to hell for eternity. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know. Weird. And you know what else is weird? Left-handed Jedi. Super chat for $2 says Mary's rent-a-womb, Uterosaurus. Look, for your storage solutions, go to Mary. Go to Virgin Rent-A-Storage.
If Mary's womb can contain an infinite being,
Right.
she's got the space for your stuff.
Right. She's really been doing those pelvic exercises. I'll tell you that right now. You can contain that power. You've really been doing the pelvic work.
Self-perpetuating, rather, because the sinning goes on forever, the punishment goes on forever. Thirdly, I want to suggest that there may be, in fact, a sin of infinite gravity and proportion, which does merit eternal punishment.
Also implies that a person in heaven who becomes ungrateful, like say they get used to the eternal bliss and chanting and whatever, could be sent to hell.
Or if someone gets to heaven and then their family's not there and is being tortured in hell, and they go, wow, God's a dick for sending them to hell and not busting them out. Right, to the lake of fire with you. To the lake of fire. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Everyone ends up in hell.
Well, over an infinite amount of time, right? You can't... Weird.
I'm just saying, I don't think Bill has thought his ideas all the way through.
Maybe not. Maybe, and he certainly hasn't cleared them with the church, the Catholic Church or otherwise. I'll tell you that
for sure.
Good night, Ryan.
Good night, Ryan.
Thank you. Did we get raided? Did I miss a raid? If you did, welcome to any raiders that may be stopping by, except for the obvious Wilson sycophants. Yeah.
The hate watchers.
This would be.
Yeah, the hate watchers. Yeah, you can go fuck yourselves.
The sin of.
I'm sorry, I can't help it that you make them jealous of what an intelligent person looks like when all they have is poor Andrew to deal with, and I make them jealous of, eye candy on the screen.
Yeah.
Irrevocably rejecting God and his forgiveness. It seems to me that for the creature to spit in the face of.
Imagine rejecting a mate for their gender. Imagine that. That's just un-Australian, quite frankly. Un-Australian. Gotta say. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you question my culture?
Indeed.
God, his creator, to reject God irrevocably is a sin of infinite proportion and could well merit eternal punishment. So even though this isn't the topic of the debate tonight, I think that no arguments have been given to show that the doctrine of hell is incompatible with God's love and justice. The biblical view is that God wants every single person to know him and his love and his salvation forever. And the only reason that will isn't fulfilled is because of human freedom. Now, the third argument that...
We've got hecklers and applause in the debate. That's cool. I can't help but feel that it's a mostly religious audience, but admittedly, I don't think Flu's doing a very good job. Like, I really do not. Yeah.
Doctor,
if we intersperse on either side applause throughout the midst of the debate, we will extend the debate to excessive time. Please, if you would, reserve applause for the breaks between the sessions of the debate.
Yep.
Thank you.
Holy shit, a moderator doing something.
Holy crap, a moderator actually moderating? I've never seen its like. You know what? Don't get me wrong. MDD used to be a lot better. It used to be a lot better about moderation. It used to be a lot better about, having actual debates. Yeah. I don't know.
The third argument offered by Dr. Flu was that the notion of a bodiless person is impossible. But I have two responses to this. In the first place...
No, he didn't say it's impossible. He said that it doesn't conform with what he knows of the world around it. And I have to agree. I think that you've got to, show that it is possible to have a mind without a body. not just possible, but plausible, like that it actually can happen. I think that of all the arguments, that was kind of his strongest, but he never said it was impossible, right?
Mm-hmm. So
Notice that he gave no
reason
proof
to think so.
Right.
of this. He gave no argument. He just asserted it's impossible. I want to see a proof of that.
He did not assert that it was impossible. He did not assert that. Wow, Craig, stop. That's not something he asserted.
Yeah, this is one of the it's such an old tactic that it doesn't even have a fallacy assigned to it. It's when you take what your opponent said, reword it into something else.
Oh, it's a straw man.
And then drop it. It's similar to a straw man, yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not even doing the argument. He's just changing the quote, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I would argue that we are acquainted with our own selves as immaterial persons. You see, reductive materialism, which says that the mind is the same as the brain, just doesn't work, because mental properties are clearly distinct from physical properties. For example, the brain is not sad, but a person is sad.
Is this a composition division fallacy?
It kind of seems to be heading in that direction.
Yeah. It's like saying, well, we know that a computer game isn't physical because obviously the Mario in your Mario Brothers doesn't exist, but so that's somehow like you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The software is distinct from what's on the hard drive because we know, you can install different softwares and the hard drive remains physically unchanged. So it's clearly not the hard drive.
Right.
Like, dude, that's exactly how it works.
It's clearly distinct from the abstraction of the character, what it's meant to represent. So I can have a thought, right? That thought can be of an abstraction like Super Mario Brothers or let's just say Bowser. Okay, I saw something on Bowser. Bowser, right? Now, that doesn't mean that it exists somewhere outside of that abstraction, and it doesn't mean that that isn't based upon physical things.
Yeah, to put it more in a more concrete relationship, we have the ability to put people into fast MRIs and do real-time brain scans, and then ask them to think about certain things.
Yes.
Or watch certain movies that evoke certain emotions or whatever the case may be, and we can see where the brain lights up when they do that. So thoughts and feelings do have a physical component. They manifest by physical changes in the electrochemical signals of the brain. Fuck.
Yeah, Titan, MDD was never that great. Yes, but they used to be better. Okay, I'm not saying that they used to be better. That's what I'm saying. But I think the big winner here is definitely if you understand split brain patients. That is wild, and it just shows how dependent we are on the physical structures of our brain. So people that have had the corpus callosum, I always mispronounce that word, callosum, I think it is, split down the middle of their brain. The two hemispheres are separated. Sorry, go ahead, Ember. If you want to correct me, that's fine.
Corpus callosum. However, it could be the American spelling. We do like to leave letters out.
I'll take, because I kept calling it Corpus Coliseum. My brain misfiring, and getting a word that seems similar. So yeah, I don't know why I was doing that, but yeah, close enough, whatever. But basically, split brain patients, their two hemispheres make two totally different people with their own opinions and their own feelings on stuff. They literally have two different people inside them. One can be an atheist and the other a theist. It's wild. And the only way they can access one half of the brain is by having the other hand, the opposite hand, right, because that's the part of the brain that's in. Like, if you research it, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. So we know that splitting a brain creates two separate identities, each using those parts of the brain to form those identities. right? So when we're talking about me, it is an amalgamation of all these different parts of the brain. So yes, the brain isn't sad, but I feel a certain way because the different parts of my brain that control those emotive reactions are firing. There's nothing spiritual about it. There's nothing non-physical about it. It is all physical stuff. And we know that. Because when we like try to treat things like depression, we're not going, we'll go to a church. Okay, no.
Right.
No, you need to actually, you know, there's antidepressants, there's therapies, there's things we can try and do. But it's all based upon this idea of, hey, it is the physical interactions in your brain. And I think split brain patience is the epitome of that.
Yeah. And you touch on another thing with mood stabilizers, the drugs that help fix chemical imbalances so you can function in society, like dealing with depression or all the other various, we don't have drugs for all of them, but the point is they're physical chemicals that affect the physical brain and change our fucking moods.
Yes, like MDMA, like it's called the love drug for a reason, because you fall in love with everything around you. Like it's actually quite disturbing how sort of, you know, and it's not lust. It is this feeling of love kind of thing. And it is just chemicals in the brain. I think that like real love has a lot of dependencies that evoke those chemicals and cause you to feel that way. There's a lot more to it, but we can bring up that feeling with chemicals.
It's a neat trick. It's also a cool experience if you ever have the opportunity. I mean, I'm not saying don't do the drug, because I've never used the drug artificially. But if you ever have the chance to be in one of those mental states where you just love everything, like everything is wonderful and it's marvelous to be alive, and oh my God, this coffee cup is so perfect. It is a peak experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being in that thing. I was down at a farmer's market kind of thing, and someone, like, it was just stalls, you know, those markets kind of thing, the weekend markets, they have stalls with knickknacks and a rug seller and, you know, all of this thing. And it was a gorgeous day, and someone was playing Patchable's Canon, which is one of my favorite sort of beautiful pieces of music, and I was in love with everything. It was a fantastic feeling. It doesn't last forever. These are fleeting experiences. Enjoy them and, you know, revel in them. They don't have to last forever. They're just beautiful while it happens. But yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about, Ems. It's a beautiful thing.
Hell yeah.
Mental property is different than a physical property. A thought doesn't have a weight or a spatial location. So reductive material.
It kind of does.
It kind of does, yeah. Yeah. And we've started to use AI to interpret the brain's signals and what people to like guess what they're thinking about, right? So this is, okay, prepare to be scared, but I saw an article on, they used an AI to interpret these sort of brain scans of what they were thinking about, and it got a 50% hit rate. Just saying. That's pretty good.
It's not bad for an AI.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's not bad, for they could have been thinking of everything and it managed to hit at about 50%, which is wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
So, you know, powerful enough AI might actually be able to scan us and tell what we're thinking, which is horrifying.
Uh-huh.
Just won't work. What about another view called epiphenomenalism, the idea that the physical brain has mental properties which supervene on it? Well, this is simply incompatible with such things as self-identity over time, or intentional states where one intends to do something, because on this view, mental states are just sort of an excrescent of the brain, not really a self which intends to do anything. It's incompatible with free will, because there's no way these mental epiphenomenal...
Kind of.
Yeah.
So what he's touching on there is a thing that we've known about for a little while, but we're still gathering data on exactly how it works, where studies have shown that under certain circumstances, it appears that we begin to take an action a fraction of a second before we consciously decide to do the action.
Correct. Yeah.
And so it makes it seem like consciousness is just a justification mechanism for what we're already doing anyway. but it's not all decisions. It's certain things that are what you might classify as borderline instinct.
Yeah.
And
Intuitive stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated as hell. But also, even if that were true for all decisions, well, that just means you're wrong about free will, Dr. Craig, which is not a problem for us.
Yeah, that's not really a problem for us at all. There's also, I remember reading about how if you're burnt, for instance, your moving of your hand, the signal doesn't come from the brain, right? It actually comes from the spine. It's like a programmed thing where your brain doesn't think about it. You will jerk your hand away from that, intense pain from the spine, and you actually have to override it if you do want to do that. But sometimes it isn't even the brain doing it. It's the spine that does that. It's a reflex reaction.
Yeah, there's a few of those things programmed into us. The knee reflex test that doctors sometimes do. That's another one where it doesn't have to go all the way to the brain to process because it's hard programmed into your system, and it's an evolutionary advantage to react to those stimuli faster than the brain could. Because to get a signal all the way to the brain, even if it doesn't have to go through your consciousness, it just needs to get processed in the brain and then get the signal all the way back takes almost 1/10 of a second. But to just run it back to the spine for detection and response takes less than half that time.
It's incredible. So where's your soul in that William Lane Craig? What your soul is also in the spine? I push X to doubt. There's nothing that would lead us to believe there's a soul or any kind of extra physical thing. They sort of go to the hard problem of consciousness, and it's like, okay, yeah, we don't know why we're conscious. Okay, why does that suggest a God?
Yeah, what does that have to do with the price of the tea in China?
Yeah. Because every brain scan, everything that they've done, it's only taking a snapshot of the brain, right? Like it's only taking one snapshot at one point in time. It's kind of like you taking a photograph of a electronic circuit and going, well, how does that thing do what it's doing? Well, it's not doing it in that snapshot. That's just one point in time. It is the amalgamation of all those electrons traveling through that cause it to do something. Like you can't just take the brain as well, this is just the physical structure now. It is something that is processing. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we don't understand all there is to understand about the brain and the mind, but I don't see any reason to think it's more than physical. We can account for almost everything.
His case seems to be that brains are superfluous. Like, okay, Bill, have your brain surgically removed and tell us what you feel after,
Yeah. Maybe or just as someone mentioned in the chat, just have a lobotomy and then see how your mind works, and it's like, yeah, it doesn't. It just doesn't, like, yeah. Yeah, your gut thinks too. Yes, your gut can influence your emotions. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we know that your gut bacteria can influence the emotions. It can you can feel sad when you don't get the right kind of food. It's wild. And that's something that isn't even you. That's different DNA, different organism. It's just your gut bacteria.
Yeah. It's fascinating because they emit certain secretions, which are a chemical signal, the same as neurotransmitters, even if they're a different form, which are picked up by receptors in the gut, which are then transmitted either by nerves or by hormone signals in the bloodstream, whatever the case may be. As far as your brain's concerned, it's just another sensory input. And it processes it like one. It's fun. You have a lot more than 5 senses, too.
It can be fun. It can be horrible if you're not eating well. They can really screw you up.
The experience of it can be
that's
horrible.
true.
Starving to death is extremely painful.
Yeah.
Do not advise. 0 out of 10. But the fact that you have that extra sense.
That's fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
That's fun, yeah.
nominal states can freely choose anything or do anything to affect the brain. So that view seems to me to be implausible. I think the best view is some sort of dualism interactionism, that we act as agents to cause physical events in the world. We ourselves are immaterial selves embodied, and God would be an immaterial self or mind which is not embodied. And so far from being implausible, I think that this is the most plausible view of human beings, and it applies to God as well.
You're just asserting things, Bill.
Right. I think dualism's the best. Well, do you have any evidence for this soul? Like, this is the thing. You're just asserting, oh, we have a soul and we're embodied non-physical beings. Okay. You're going to provide any evidence or any kind of argument for that?
Yeah, I don't have to back up that assertion, because that assertion is my backup for a previous assertion. I'm not arguing this point. I'm just stating it.
No. And this is kind of the, I think this is the most, we would rather have arguments that rely on logic and evidence than just your feelings of why it must be true, because everybody knows why the Christians subscribe to dualism. It's because their theology believes in a soul. It's not based upon any kind of evidence that's been gathered from our observations or, philosophers doing. It is because they already have a presupposition that there is a soul based upon what their book says. Like, let's be real about this.
So basically, I don't think any of these reasons for atheism that we've seen tonight are very compelling. I don't find them persuasive.
Yeah, I kind of, I have a tendency to agree. I kind of agree, though. I think there's much better arguments than what Flew put out there. But, I didn't find his reasons for not going atheism very compelling either. He's like, this is the thing, right? I've got a bit of an echo. Am I coming through on your side?
It's possible.
Maybe it was for a sec. It was for a second. So I didn't think Flew was particularly well spoken. I didn't use the best arguments, but yours are worse. And the only reason he's looking better is because his rhetoric and his presentation are better.
Which sways audiences, but doesn't actually prove his case. But more to the point, he's even more wrong than that, because whether he personally finds an argument satisfying has no bearing at all on what's true.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, we can't go directly to what is actuality. We've got to use, reasons and logic and evidence and arguments to get there. So
right, but his personal satisfaction is none of those.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. So he's just sort of making an appeal to emotion kind of thing, or an argument from authority with himself being as the authority kind of thing. Like,
exactly.
I think this is more compelling. Yeah, I don't know why.
Arrogance.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, I don't think anybody should find it compelling, right? I don't think that sort of saying, hey, we're us, but we're not our body. That's no, that isn't even compelling. That's a bald assertion, a baseless assertion, and with there's a lot of evidence to suggest that's not true. We went through a few of them, so no, that isn't compelling at all. It's just a baseless assertion.
Now, what about my arguments for the existence of God? Are they any better? Well, first I argued that the origin of the universe points to the existence of God, and gave a deductive argument. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. The universe has a cause.
There is so
That's not
much
a
in
deductive
there.
argument.
And
it's a syllogism, and
yes,
applied deductively, it doesn't actually get you anywhere. It implies, first of all, it's not it would be valid, but it's not sound. But also,
it's not sound, right.
Even if it were true, it doesn't get you to any specific conclusion.
No, I think the deductive part he's talking about is his add-ons. Like it must be timeless, spaceless, because he'll go through and say, hey, a timeless being couldn't create time or something like that. He has to be outside of time in order to create time. And that's not necessarily true. There could be a larger realm of time within some greater cosmos. So he could be subject to time, just not our local presentation of space-time. So, I think that he's talking about that. But no, your deductive argument doesn't get to a god either. And, it's wild. That's the part that he's talking about. And you're correct. The first part doesn't get you to a god. It's why he has to smuggle in all of these lessers.
And it's not deductive in any kind of classical sense either, because he's not eliminating alternate possibilities. He's doing top-down reasoning to try to stack up the characteristics that he thinks describe his god, even though his god is supposed to be this god, which does not share the criteria he lays out. He rules out this god if his criteria are true. Fortunately for him, they're not.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Flew in response said, but we must explain things in terms of other things which are simply brute facts. But what my argument is that because the universe began to exist, it cannot be plausibly our stopping point as that brute fact. Why is that? Well, because of that first premise, that whatever begins to exist has a cause. Dr. Flew has to refute that first premise if he thinks that the universe is going to be the brute fact and the stopping point. That first premise, I think, has two.
I don't think he specified what the brute fact was. I don't think he really he just sort of talked about them. And maybe I missed something. Maybe he was saying that the universe is a brute fact. I don't think that is a sufficient, reason. Like, I don't think the universe is just a brute fact. I think that
whether it is or not is irrelevant, because it's incoherent to suggest that something outside of time, like, how do you create time? Time is an intrinsic property of the universe. It is a fundamental aspect of space-time, which is what the universe is. So there is no time, even though we believe this instantiation of space-time started running 14 billion years ago, give or take. There is no time that time was not already running.
Correct. Yes, because there's no time.
You can't create something that already exists. Time is always there.
Well,
it's already there.
I totally agree, right? I 100% agree with that. But at the same time, what I was getting at was that if the universe is a brute fact, then it didn't begin to exist. If it was a brute fact, it is a necessary condition and therefore always existed, right? You can't have a brute fact that begins to exist. And I think that's what he's getting at. But think about it another way. If it is a brute fact, if the universe is a brute fact, then it didn't begin to exist. It is eternal, which just completely destroys your syllogism, right? Because things that begin to exist have to have a cause. Well, if the universe didn't begin to exist, therefore the universe doesn't need a cause. Bang!
Right.
You're done.
And Bill can't demonstrate that the universe did begin to exist, because not only do we have that time situation going on, but also he can't demonstrate that what we call the Big Bang wasn't just a phase change from a previous configuration of the universe.
Yes,
that's the problem with the deductive argument, is you have to rule out all the other possibilities, and he can't do that.
Well, I don't know how anybody could. That's the thing. Like, it's impossible, because it also contains all the things that we haven't thought of as well.
Lines of support behind it. First would be the metaphysical intuition that something cannot come out of nothing. Out of nothing, nothing comes. And that's why
intuition, the best art. He's not even trying to hide the fallacies at this point. He's just throwing them on the table. Mom, look at this fallacy I brought home. Fuck.
My intuition. Like, our intuition tells us that the earth is flat, my guy. That is not the case. Like, seriously.
He may as well just throw up a big old sign that says, I am irrational right
Yeah.
now, because that's
Yeah.
what he said. He's like, forget reason, forget figuring things out. I have a feeling, don't you know? Never mind that it doesn't comport with reality or anything that we can calculate or discern or discover or explore. I have a fucking feeling.
Yep.
But it's not a material feeling. It doesn't have a physical cause.
Yep. Yep. Holy crap.
Oh,
Holy
shit.
crap. And plus, like, being a metaphysical in front of it doesn't make it any better. You know, like, that really just doesn't make a metaphysical intuition. Like, get out of here, man. It doesn't give it any more gravitas or any more meaning. It just means you feel a certain way. That's it. That's all it means. You just feel like this is true. You feel like this metaphysics is valid. Wow. Bill.
If only Jason Lyle were on this level, he'd be having quantum intuitions.
Yeah, quantum intuitions. Yeah, no.
The universe began to exist, it cries out for a cause. Secondly, that causal premise is constantly confirmed in our experience. Nobody believes that, say, a raging Bengal tiger or an Eskimo village could suddenly pop into existence out of nothing right here in the field house. So
this is just a straw man, because the argument from nothing, we've covered it a million times. Lawrence Krauss's A Universe from Nothing was talking about a quantum field, not literally no thing, right? So it was a change in state between a quantum field and matter, space-time, energy. It wasn't literally nothing. And the fact that he is using this, you know, he's been told again and again and again and again. Like, I don't know what age this is, but I'm sure by now he's been told. But he thinks that God did do a creation out of nothing, right? So him saying, hey, a creation out of nothing can't occur.
I was just going to point out that he accidentally blew his own case out of the water, because let's go with that. Nothing comes from nothing. You're absolutely correct, Dr. Craig. Now, do pray tell, what did God make the universe out of?
Yes.
Was it nothing, Dr. Craig? Well, then, by your own argument, it can't exist. And also, perhaps you'll say, well, he made it out of his own essence or his own substance, whatever the fuck.
Heard his voice, like sound.
Substance. But then the universe is God?
Yeah.
Like, there is no way that this ends in a positive outcome for you, Dr. Craig. Right. You have debunked your own argument. It is self-refuting.
Yeah. And we're not the ones saying creation ex nihilo. We're saying, hey, the universe may have been in a different state, you know, and it changed to this state. That's all. But this is the straw man that they love, you know, and it's just been parroted so often by these guys that you will just hear it, and it's just so cringeworthy. But the weirdest thing when you're talking with theists, the weirdest thing is when you say, do you understand what that means in physics and what that was referring to? And they'll say, yeah. And you'll say, so you know it was a quantum field, it's not literally no thing. And they'll go, yeah. And you'll go, so it wasn't from nothing. And they'll go, no, well, you know, I understand that. And it's like, then why are you saying it? Like...
Because it's not a straw man if you don't get called out on it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's only illegal if you get caught.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically, yeah. No. Oh, boy.
First premise is very plausible, and that therefore, if the universe began to exist, it must have a cause. Now, Dr. Flew admits the universe began to exist. In his book, Atheistic Humanism, he says we now have excellent natural scientific reasons for believing that the universe did, in fact, have an explosive beginning.
I mean, I don't know what Flew's background is, but an explosive beginning? Oh, okay. So he might not be aware that that's, you know, the Big Bang is the start of the expansion period of the universe and not necessarily the start of the universe.
Yeah, like Flew can be wrong. He's not the Pope of atheism either. But also that doesn't imply, like, to have an explosion. Let's say it was an explosion. What blows up, Craig?
Right.
Like, if I were to set off a stick of dynamite, I bet you it's the stick of dynamite that explodes. It isn't just an explosion. So you have to have a preceding set of circumstances, which fucks over your model.
And therefore, it follows logically and inescapably that the universe has a cause. Now, he asks, does the universe, or the cause of the universe, have the attributes of God? And he suggests that it doesn't. Let me make two responses. I am using the definition of God that was used in the original Copleston-Russell debate. In that debate, Copleston proposed, by God, I quote, we mean a supreme personal being distinct from the world and the creator of the world. And Russell responded, I accept this definition. On that definition, I have given evidence for the existence of God.
So he's talking about the earlier debate that you mentioned, like 50 years ago with Bertrand Russell. Right, gotcha. I would like him to reject Flu's definition if that's what he's going to do, instead of bringing up somebody else's. I'd like him to say, hey, I don't adhere. But, you know, obviously that is William Lane Craig's idea of a god, right? Someone that gives moral distinctions.
This was going to happen because he didn't define it in the first place. Flu drops a definition, and then Craig goes, nope, not my definition. Here's my definition.
Right. Yeah. But I don't think he's saying this is his definition either. This is Bertrand Russell's definition from the previous one, so it's not even his either. I think that he's not going to define a god in any way and sort of leave it. He wants to leave it in the deistic kind of nebulous, you know, creator god somewhere instead of the Christian one. And this is always a problem. They always run away from the Christian god.
Yeah, if you look closely at the definition that Craig offered, they're talking about an immaterial personal agent who's responsible for the creation of the world. That's not the same as the God in the Bible, but it's also not the same as the God Craig is arguing for. He's talking about the beginning of the universe. The beginning of the world, the earth, is a very different thing. In fact, I bring this up when I debate these guys. I'm like, are we talking about, do you believe in two separate creations? Do we have God created everything 14 billion years ago, but then even though he created everything, he later came back 4.5 billion years ago, give or take, and created the earth also? Was God also here during the oxygen apocalypse after he reached his finger down and created life, and then the anaerobic bacteria turned the sky fucking blue and everything started dying off? Was there a third creation when he, you know, like, how many creations are we talking here? Precisely. Or are they separate creator gods, all doing their own unique creations? What are we arguing here?
Or did the Earth just form of accretion disks like the physics tell us that did? You know, like what? Yeah, no idea.
Secondly, remember I'm offering a cumulative case. The first argument gives us an immaterial, timeless, changeless, spaceless, beginningless, uncaused personal creator of the universe. The second...
And isn't it interesting?
It does not. But
isn't it,
again, baseless assertions, but also cumulative case. That's a buzzword the apologists like to use. We hear it a lot from people like J. Warner Wallace, who's like, well, we don't have any like evidence per se, but we have like a whole bunch of really implausible circumstance that we can stack up. And, you know, if you have enough bad evidence, it becomes good evidence, right?
And I think Strobel uses that one as well, cumulative case. And doesn't Habermas use that as well? Like, he's talks about a cumulative case for the resurrection of Jesus. He
does the whole minimal facts thing. It's like, well, we have these definite facts, and from them we can extrapolate certain other things that are probably true, maybe. And from that we can build up to this
cumulative case. Like, you just, when you hear...
I don't have proof. I don't have a conclusive case. It's an admission of defeat.
So when you hear an apologist say a cumulative case, just think a pile of bullshit. Okay, that's basically what you should think. So a mountain of really weak evidence does not make for strong evidence. It might make for a belief, but it shouldn't convince you. Wow. Yeah,
as I often say, if your thing is so evident that
Mm.
there's no doubt whatsoever, then stop fucking around with these bullshit arguments that ultimately boil down to a pile of fallacies and hot wind, and
Yep.
pull back the fucking curtain and show me your God. Just
Yeah.
demonstrate it. It should be so much easier than all this work you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Argument gives us an intelligent designer of the universe. The third argument gives us a source of moral value and all goodness. The fourth argument gives us a God who is active in history in the person of Jesus. And the last one gives us a God who can be immediately known and experienced. And I think the cumulative force of these arguments does indeed give us many of the attributes of God. My second argument...
The made-up attributes. I love it. I love it.
The ones that he's just baselessly asserted, if we take those as true, what?
If we just grant that everything I've said is true, then you know what I've said is true. Go me. I'm the bestest. Yes, Bill, very good job. Here's your cookie. Now go sit on the potty and do your business. You know, it's what the fuck are we doing here? If the last one were true, if it is possible that the Holy Spirit can just reveal the truth of whichever God to anybody at any time, we don't need the rest of the bullshit.
Correct.
It can just do that. It's like when Christians rely on scripture, right? They're like, oh, well, scripture says this, scripture says that, prophecy this, prophecy that. Remember, the first few generations of Christians did not have this. They just believed. They often believed stuff based on oral stories, some of which got written down and became a version of some of the Gospels, but they didn't rely on they couldn't pull out the book and be like, well, you know, Corinthians 4:26 says they didn't know. So you don't actually need this to be a Christian. It's the same thing here. You don't need the bullshit arguments if the thing is true. I'm getting all worked up today.
No, okay. Like Bill will do that to you. I mean, that epistemic bar, he is lowering it like a champ. Like he is limboing under that thing. Wow.
I'm actually kind of proud of myself that it took Bill pulling his bullshit to get me worked up. When we had the haters and fuckers in the chat earlier, I blew him kisses. I'm like, you don't matter. You're irrelevant. It took Bill to get me worked up. And I kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Bill is kind of really annoying. I mean, his sort of confidence in sort of saying, hey, I've got all of these attributes, and if you assign them, there's a cumulative... I don't... Why would we? Why would we? It's wild. It's absolutely wild. I think Bill has lent too much on his polish as an apologist and his rhetoric for too long. I think as he sort of got older and he didn't have the same amount of polish and rhetoric, things have been horrifying. Like the clip you showed before, where he's basically going, "Oh, it's great that all these kids, were unalived." It's horrifying, absolutely horrifying. His statement of, "Oh, well, if you can't overcome that epistemic bar," epistemic just means the justification for your belief. Just lower the justification until you can get over. It's horrifying. It's like saying, well, I can't find the justification to believe in Bigfoot, so I'm just going to lower that justification to a point where I can believe it. That is a horrifying thing for a philosopher to say.
Yeah, it's anti-rational. It's fucking wild. But also the specific examples you gave about, the justifying the deaths of children. Seth Andrews has done a couple of pieces on this, some of his bigger speeches about how if you try to follow the logical entailments of the belief system laid out in the Bible, if you try to follow it back and commit to the entailments, then it makes you outright say this horrible atrocity is good. Actually, you have to do that. That's baggage you buy into. It makes good people commit to evil things.
Absolutely.
Was based on the complex order of the universe. And here I argued that the fine-tuning of the initial conditions is due to either law, chance, or design. It's not due to law or chance because these are initial conditions and they cannot be explained by scientific law. Paul Davies...
How does he know that? I mean, that can't be explained currently, but that doesn't mean it can't be explained at all. It's like somebody saying, well, birds can fly, and that can't be explained by scientific law, which is kind of what they said about flight. They said humans would never be able to fly because we'll never be able to, that was the domain of God. And birds and things that God designated, like there was a whole load of stuff saying people wouldn't be able to fly. So yeah, just because we can't explain it now doesn't mean we won't be able to explain it at all. It's like,
Yeah.
what's that thing? It was like bumblebees. They couldn't explain how they flew, kind of thing, and there was that
Yeah.
chestnut going around, like, and then someone
Aerodynamics
figured it
as
out.
we understood it. It turns out that,
Yeah.
that we misapplied our understanding of how bees flew, and they
Right.
actually do comport
Yes.
with the laws of aerodynamics as we understand them. We just didn't
Mhm.
understand bees as well as we thought. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a thing for a while. We were like, hey, according to the laws as we know them right now, bees can't actually fly. So either they're magic or we're
Right.
missing something.
Yeah. So we
We
might
were
be
missing
missing
something.
something. So him
Yeah.
saying that, hey, it doesn't conform to the, laws of physics. Well, not the laws we have now. Like, we can't get past the initial conditions with our current physics, but that changes. That's the strength of science. It will change as we get more information. So, Large Hadron Collider, and let's see if we can find out more. I don't see this as a very good argument.
In his book, The Mind of God, says there is absolutely no evidence in favor of these conditions being necessary. He says even if the laws of physics were unique, it doesn't follow that the physical universe itself is unique. The laws must be augmented by cosmic initial conditions. There is nothing in present ideas about laws of initial conditions remotely to suggest that their consistency with the laws of physics would imply uniqueness. Far from it. It seems then that the physical universe...
There's something to that as well.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten all the way to the bottom because we're dealing with like the initial conditions of the universe, the very first few fractions of seconds.
Right.
And we have a very hard time seeing that far. But we have, and this is probably since the debate, but we have made some progress. There have been papers coming out recently showing that not only could the initial conditions be much more widely varied than we first thought, but also that they seem to be dependent on each other. And while it's not the same as a law, because we can't
Yeah.
repeat it and find that it holds true under all circumstances, but it is a scientific conclusion that if the initial conditions of the universe had to be this way, because if you move one thing, then something else
Yeah.
moves and something else moves, and the first thing moves back, and it has to. This is what happens. It's
Like
just the interplay of forces.
the speed of light. If that was a different value, the magnetic moments of electrons would be different, and therefore, it would be totally different. Like, matter would not form. So it has to be that value. Now, we don't know whether it could be any other value because we don't know the initial conditions of the universe. It could be this is the only way for a universe to form. And like, we don't know that all values had an equal probability. Like, you're sort of saying, hey, well, what if it was this other value? Maybe 99% of the time it forms with the value that we have. We don't know. So all of this sort of probability stuff of the fine-tuning of these values, they're assuming that all values had an equal probability and that any other values are possible at all. So, which they haven't actually made. So the only way to get probability when you don't have like multiple instances to test probability is to make a Bayesian analysis. And in a Bayesian analysis, you must make certain assumptions, right? You have to assume things. So they're assuming all values are possible and every value has equal probability. I don't see why you would make that assumption with so little to base it on.
Right. Well, it comes from theistic thinking, frankly, because they like to think of single cause, one thing happen, one thing result, but that's not how the universe works. We see the effect of multiple factors influencing outcome on as small a scale as a craps table, where you just have two dice, right?
Right.
Like equal odds 1 through 6 on either of them, but an emergent property of the two dice interacting is that 7 is the most common outcome.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Like you have a much higher chance of rolling a 7 than a 12.
Yes.
Way higher. It's not
Mm-hmm.
quite over 50%, but it's a ridiculously high outcome for a single
Yep.
number in the 1 through 12 possible outcomes. When you add in additional confounding factors, other input elements, you're going to create a larger and larger a curve of possible outcomes. This is a
Yep.
foundation of quantum physics, incidentally. That's why Schrodinger became so famous. It wasn't the cat experiment. It was he worked out the probability distributions of these interfering factors. And it's the same thing with the universe, except we have fuck tons of dice.
Yeah. Like
So to speak.
on 2 dice, 2 and 12 are the least likely to be rolled. Like they've got a very low probability just because of the natural way that numbers work. You know,
Yeah,
but
they like to make out this case that it's like playing Yahtzee with 10 billion dice and rolling all sixes. It's highly improbable, but that's not really the case.
mhm.
It's like we didn't even roll a 7 with this universe, right? Like we've investigated some of the properties of the universe to the extent we have the current technology for. But something like they often say, if gravity were just a hair stronger, a hair weaker, then stars couldn't form for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not actually true. We've done the
Mhm.
calculation on that.
Correct.
And there is a wide window of gravitational strengths where stars perform exactly as they do right now.
Right.
And there's other parameters that would make the universe even more life permitting than we have. So we
Yeah.
didn't even roll a 7 with this universe. We got like a
Right.
6, maybe even a 5.
Yeah, and so they're basically saying, hey, well, we didn't crap out. Like, we must have gotten a perfect universe. No. No.
universe does not have to be the way it is. It could have been otherwise. And I showed that, in fact, the universe is balancing on a razor's edge that cries out for some sort of explanation. It can't be from law. It can't be from chance, because the chances of this occurring are simply incomprehensible, and therefore the best explanation.
You don't know the chances of it happening. That's the whole point. Look, when we're considering probability, right, probabilities, essentially to do a statistical data analysis, we would take the p-value, which is the number of instances where we get a result out of the total sample size, right? The higher the sample size, the more it will reflect the actual probability, right? So if you start flipping a coin, and someone has flipped the coin literally millions of times, they literally sat down and flipped the coin millions of times, and it's wild. Anyway, so you get a sample size, and that will, the higher the sample size, the more the p-value will reflect the probability. Now, if you have one sample size and you flip a coin, it's not 100% heads, right? Like, that is not a sample size. Usually the minimum sample size to have any kind of statistical significance is about 300. That is usually the place you put it at, and depending on what happens, you basically do an error, margin of error kind of thing. But we have one universe, so you cannot be getting the probability from an actual data analysis. What you're doing is doing a Bayesian analysis, which is basically assuming a whole bunch of stuff like probabilities of everything is equal, it can form under other conditions, all these things that you're putting in it, and then expecting the probability to come out as impossible. No.
Yeah, it reminds me of an experiment that Matt Dillahunty used to do at his live magic and skepticism shows. He would have everyone in the audience flip a coin, and everyone who got heads sat down, and the remaining people would flip a coin, and everyone who got heads sat down. And after 8 to 12 repetitions, there was one person left standing. And he says, you, sir, you flipped nothing but tails. Was your outcome inevitable? And he looks around at all the other people sitting down, and he's like, obviously not. There you go. Just because you did manage to get all tails doesn't mean it's inevitable, or that there was a conscious agent controlling it.
Right. It just happens to be. And, and then there's stuff like multiverse, which we don't know is true, but we don't know is not true. There's all kinds of things. There's parent and child universes that it could be, the universe tries to form and then eventually it forms. There's a whole bunch of stuff we just don't know. But, of course, Craig, who does not understand cosmogony, which is the origin of the universe, in any way, shape, or form, and he absolutely proved that in the Sean Carroll debate, he does not understand cosmogony, wants to declare it so. Well, we got to push back on this. You can't say, hey, it's impossible for it to be formed under anything but a God, because you don't know that. There's no way to demonstrate. That is an assertion. It's not true. You know, or we don't know if it's true.
Is design. Now, Dr. Flew says, but we don't infer design because of complexity. We infer design because something is an artifact. But of course, the question is, how do we recognize something as an artifact? Well, we do so by recognizing a specified improbability about that. For example, two archaeologists digging in the...
Oh, look, Kip, I get you. So famously, what Kip's referring to is famously Richard Carrier did a Bayesian analysis on Jesus, basically, because the theist was saying, hey, if you do a Bayesian analysis on Jesus, assuming certain things are true, then, you know, assuming that he was real, you get him rising from the grave. Richard Carrier did a Bayesian analysis, assuming that it wasn't like, you know, these assumptions kind of lead you down, and that assumes that Jesus never existed at all, which is kind of where he gets his mythicism from. So, look, Bayesian analysis is entirely dependent on the accuracy of your the presuppositions or the assumptions that you're making. What it's meant to do is provide a fluid probability system that when the information is updated, the probabilities change. It's not supposed to be used as we have this hard thing. It's only useful if you know sort of that those assumptions are actually true, which you can't. It's used as a tool for updating. It's not supposed to be used as hey, my Bayesian analysis, when I make all of these assumptions, says, you know, it's 90% of this, so it's true. No, that's not really what it's supposed to be used for. It has its place, but, you know, sort of making definitive statements isn't one of them.
Yeah, and worse, a lot of theologues like to misuse it, like Cam from Crapturing Christianity.
Crapturing Christianity, nice.
He caught a lot of shit when he tried to use a Bayesian analysis. He was rebutting something Wes Huff said, or one of these other young upstarts who were still in seminary school. He's like, no, let me show you how Bayesian is done. And then not only did he come up with completely arbitrary priors, but every additional piece of data he put in was also arbitrary. It was Cam felt like it should be this percent. And so, he came to the conclusion that he'd started with, and shock and surprise. That's not how you do a Bayesian analysis. It's just a glorified assertion with extra steps to make it appear legitimate. That's not actually a Bayesian analysis.
Well, it can be useful, right? So if you do a Bayesian analysis and then you go out and confirm some of the priors and it's updated, you can use it to point towards something, you know, and then, but it's not supposed to be this declarative thing. It's supposed to be used to generally point in the right direction, kind of thing. Like it has its place. It's just, you know, and statistics.
If you're using accurate data, if you're constantly updating, then it will gradually, regardless of the priors you start with. They actually did a Bayesian analysis on Bayesian analysis, which is meta as hell, but whatever.
Bayesianception,
Yeah, but it, just like the coin flips, it will gradually get more and more accurate. The first several rounds, it's total garbage, but it'll gradually get more and more accurate, regardless of the priors you start with, which is why people say the priors don't matter. But the priors do matter if you only have a certain amount of input data to adjust with.
Correct.
Starting with accurate priors is probably a good idea regardless.
Yeah.
The ground, finding certain rocks shaped like arrowheads or other implements. Don't say, oh, look how the processes of sedimentation and metamorphosis have created these uncanny rocks. They immediately recognize the presence of design.
Yeah, I will point again to the hagstones, rocks with holes in the middle, and we thought that they were created by spirits. That's why they're called hagstones, because the witches and spirits were creating them. But now we understand the way that fluid dynamics works. Under certain rivers, they create stones with holes through the middle. Like, we can't just tell design from looking. It's just not possible.
Snowflakes.
Right. They're complex. They're unique. They look designed. They're not designed. They're just natural forming. That's
Patterns of waves on beaches. There's so many things. I was just saying in Dave's stream earlier, Captive Desk, he does a Saturday night show. Twice I've come across root patterns on a walk through the woods that looked like the symbol pi. Now, we came up with the symbol pi, so that doesn't mean very much, but it is weird that it happened twice.
That's interesting, yeah.
Because of the improbability of that specified complexity. Or think of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. If we were to receive from outer space a message of the first 100 prime numbers in sequence, we would instantly recognize that as the product of intelligent design, just like in the Contact movie. So that these specified probabilities are...
Oh, yeah, that's for my argument, I'm going to go to this work of fiction. That's...
Here's a thing that's never happened, but if it did, we know.
If it did,
here's an interesting thing, though. A lot of theists, Craig hasn't made this argument, but a lot of theists have said information must come from a mind. That's not true. And in fact, patterns of information, something that meets the criteria Craig laid out, not the Fibonacci sequence specifically, but an on and off pattern in irregular pulses. Well, that describes a pulsar or a distant supernova emitting radio signals. Like, is there an intelligence doing that?
Well, according to, like, the last time I posed that one to a theist, because pulsars are definitely, we can tell so much about the star by their pulsing, like how often they pulse, how bright it is, all of this kind of stuff. They said, yes, that was designed by God to do that. And it's like, well, then what isn't designed?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. And
like,
that's the point.
A dead star, homie.
Right. But William Lane Craig's now saying, well, we can tell because of specified complexity. But it's like, but there's weather systems that are complex. And you think that's designed, but it's not really specified, right? It's not trying to give us anything. Like this is the problem. He's trying to separate design being, hey, this specified complexity, we can tell that it's designed. Well, then all of the rest of the universe is not designed. But Craig's argument is that it is, that God designed it all. So what is he comparing it to? Because if you say, oh, well, look at a rock, it doesn't have the specified complexity. God designed the rock. It should have specified complexity, but it doesn't. The entire Earth should have specified complexity, but it doesn't. Like, what are you talking about? This is so weird. Stop being weird, Craig. Like, he's really just debunking his own argument by saying in order to know something is designed, it's got to have specified complexity. Well, the universe doesn't have specified complexity. It seems completely random and arbitrary. Yeah, so it's not designed.
The specified complexity. Like,
right.
You're just saying words, Bill.
Yes.
Fuck.
The way we detect design all the time in ordinary life and experience. And those very present,
This really sounds like intuition again. This really does. That's how we detected it in ordinary life. Yeah, your intuition again. Like when you think that a pile of stones has been put there by somebody, but it's actually been created by the wind. You mean that kind of intuition that's often wrong? Like, we were just giving a few examples of things that look designed in nature, but they're not.
It looks like a maple leaf. Well, Craig is hooked on a feeling, da da da.
Hooked
He's
on a
believing, da da da. Join my Patreon. I'll release the whole album.
Woohoo!
Specified probabilities are present in the Big Bang itself. And thus, in the absence of an explanation by law or chance, it seems to me that the best explanation is design.
Okay, so chance, I've got a big problem with that word in the way that he's using it to describe naturally occurring things. Things don't usually occur by chance. Not as the way we understand it, right? Like completely random. The universe is deterministic. The laws of physics are deterministic. They're not chance, right? Like, so if to quote Jurassic Park, if you drop a drop of water on somebody's hand and it will slide off on a random way. It seems like chaos, right? It seems like chance, but it's not. It's deterministic on all the physics, that have the grain of the hand and how they're sitting at the time, what angle. That there's so many things that we just call it chance, but it's not chance. It's determined. It's deterministic.
Another great example is lightning bolts. Like for the longest
Right.
time, we assumed they were chance. We have
They
no
just
way to
struck
know when
randomly.
they strike.
Yeah.
But us not knowing is not the same as there not being rules, which is why lightning rods work.
Yes. And now we know that it will follow the path of least resistance, of least electrical resistance, and, down through to the earth. That is what it will do every single freaking time because it's deterministic.
Fine. I also gave an argument based on objective moral values. Remember, I showed that in the absence of God, everything becomes socio-culturally relative. Everything is relative. There is no absolute right and wrong, unless you have a transcendent vantage point to transcend socio-cultural relativism. Dr. Flew made no response to this argument at all. I also argued
it doesn't really need one, to be honest with you. It's just basically saying, so this is what I'd refer to as a appeal to or an argument from consequence. It's basically William Lane Craig saying, well, I don't like it if there's no absolute morality. So
I mean, all of this is fucking feelings. Every single thing he's just revealing. Well, I feel a certain way. Like we've discussed this before on previous shows and on other shows and so forth. But the idea of objective morality does not work, because if it's coming from God, then it's his subjective morality. Bill is just kicking the can up the road. If it's objective and separate from God, then once again, God is subservient to an external power, and that's the thing in charge, not him.
Yeah, and there's a couple of extra things, but I won't go into that. But it's the same as like saying, well, gravity's not true because if it was, people would fall off things and die. Evolution can't be true because then I'd have a anxiety-ridden meat computer in my head. Like it really is just this appeal to, I don't like the entailments of this thing.
I mean, in fairness, dealing with multiple anxiety-related issues, some of which are actual health conditions now. Why the fuck did we evolve anxiety? Like this, first of all, that's proof there isn't an intelligent designer controlling this shit. But second, like, can I just like decide I'm a creationist now so that I don't have to deal with anxiety because it can't be true?
Apparently so. Look, anxiety at one point was incredibly useful. It was incredibly useful, like to keep us alive and surviving because, we lived in a much more dangerous world than we do unless you live in the US. Maybe you should still. But anyway, just saying, it used to be incredibly useful, but now not so much. Now that we're sort of in places where we don't need to be afraid all the time about things and tigers and saber-toothed tigers and, other people and all of this kind of stuff, it kind of is this thing that causes a lot of harm nowadays. So thanks, evolution.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it still does have a use. Like Alex is pointing out, how would you know when you're safe if you never don't feel safe? And that's exactly it. The reason I have the anxiety problems is because I was in a situation where I was aggressively not safe for a long enough period of time. It developed physiological symptoms. Like, if I had the ability to listen to that anxiety sooner and be like, I'm not safe, I should go, I would be in a better place, No,
fair enough.
That the facts of the empty tomb, the appearances of Jesus, and the origin of the disciples' faith are best explained by the hypothesis of the resurrection of Jesus. I await...
Where the hell did that come from? He didn't talk about any of that stuff in his intro or the rebuttal. Dude, are you going to just slip in stuff? Wow, okay. That's a whole nother conversation. And I might add, do you remember at the start of his rebuttal, he wasn't talking about the Christian God necessarily, right? He wasn't talking about that. And in comes the Bible and resurrection of Jesus. My guy, you were saying that this isn't the God you're talking about, and then you're proceeding to talk about it. Wow. Okay.
The arguments don't matter. It's all feelings. It's all just declarations. This is the best the Christians have. According to the Christians, he is the best they have.
Yeah,
and this is what it
that's
boils
wild.
down to.
Any alternative naturalistic hypothesis which is more plausible than that. And finally, my immediate experience of God allows me to know that he exists. In the absence of good arguments for atheism, I see no reason to deny my immediate experience of God and my belief that he exists.
And that's another fail of his false deductive, false dichotomy bullshit.
Trust me, bro. Yeah.
There's another element to why we're atheist. Not only do we have no good reason to believe in his claim, but as an external observer, Bill's not the only one making claims. It isn't atheism or Christianity, though it's framed that way in this debate. In the real world, there's 43,000 claims of Christianity, different versions, but let's just call it one thing. There's Christianity, there's Islam, there's Judaism, there's Hinduism, there's many, many, many others. They all have holy books. They all have prophecies. They all have the same type and kind of evidence as each other. None can show any clear advantage or additional truthiness. So why, even if we believe there was a God, even if the Kalam convinced us there was some creator, which one do we pick? None of them have a stronger case.
Right. It doesn't get you to his God, even if you believe that's true. But I mean, he really wrapped up with why William Lane Craig believes. It's because his personal experience of believing in a God. It's this Holy Spirit thing, that you think that your happiness is tied to some kind of external being and not your own self and your own life, which is fine if you believe that, but I don't see any reason to. And I know a lot of people that thought that that's what they were feeling, that went, oh shit, I can just be a normal human being and experience that stuff without a God. So how is it a Holy Spirit? I don't know.
It's magic.
I don't know. Yeah, it's magic.
Just he doesn't want to use the word miracles. You know, he's very careful to avoid the entire way through miracles. Even with the Kalam, it was poofed into being, whatever. But ultimately, that's what he's got. I has the feels. It was the magic.
Yeah. And it kind of sums it up. And you know, I think that he's trying to say, hey, well, if you feel like God is real, if they can't prove it's not, then it's justification for believing it, right? So you could do the same with literally anything. Like, oh, well, if you feel like Bigfoot is real, if they can't prove it doesn't exist, then you should believe it. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible argument. And I highly recommend deconstructing the reasons why you believe stuff. Go back to what you actually know for sure, and then build up what we can rely on, what we can actually justify. And if you do that, then you have a much better position on what is actually real and what isn't. Because the amount that's flowing from the, well, I feel like it's real, to, hey, you've got to live your life in a certain moral way that my feelings are making up, you know, this has led to all kinds of nonsense, like just horrible stuff happening. So, yeah, I think that, Bill, you know what? I would have been really upset with Flu if Bill wasn't so bad. Like, seriously, the only thing redeeming Flu's arguments is how bad Bill is. Like, seriously.
Yeah, it's, oh my goodness, this is a horror show of a debate. It just, but another tip that I would give to people wanting to practice more skeptical thinking, try to deconstruct, and because even the better Christians say you should deconstruct and make sure your beliefs actually make sense and you're not believing things for bad reasons, is to do that comparative theology critique. Why don't you believe Islam?
Right.
Use those same criteria on what you believe.
Yes.
And see if it holds up.
Yep. Absolutely. And deconstruction isn't just for theists. We all want to, like, we all are probably benefited by deconstructing what we think and seeing if there's any justification for it. See if there's any reason why I hold this particular belief towards, you know, a member of society or you know, another type of person in, you know, in another country or anything like that. It's a good thing to do to challenge your own beliefs. That is a very good thing to do for anybody, because all of us. And I saw a comment by somebody that said, you know, I believed in the flood thing for ages. And that's not their fault. I think that they honestly believed it. Sure, a lot of people honestly believe stuff, but we want to challenge that. And that's why science is so good. It's because these things are constantly being challenged to hold up under scrutiny. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, do my beliefs have a valid justification? And do they hold up under that challenge? So I recommend it for everybody. I really do. But that's a great place to leave it. And I don't think I can take any more of Low Bar Bill today, because
that's fair.
Wow.
Holy crap. Holy crap. But we got through Flu's opening and Craig's first rebuttal. So really good progress, much better than last time. I already have the show for part 3, where we'll pick up next time. I dropped the link in the chat.
Okay, fantastic.
So yeah, if y'all want to click it once we finish here, of course, click through, hit notify me, and then YouTube will make sure you get an alert when we're about to start. It's the most reliable way to make sure you don't miss it. And also make sure you're subscribed to both channels, because we do go back and forth with these.
Yeah, and hit the bell on both channels, you know, for what it's worth. Sometimes it works.
Yeah, because we do other stuff. For example,
absolutely.
You do aimbot on my Tuesdays, the Wednesday morning for you. Fundamentalist fails on your Friday, my Thursday night, and occasionally other stuff. There's sometimes you have people over to discuss. Occasionally there's debates. There's lots of fun things. So make sure you have that bell rung so you can do all the things. My schedule's a little more chaotic. I'm trying to normalize doing a Sunday show to lead into Bad Science Sunday like I used to do before things got so wonky. But I'm also experimenting with other shows to try to find something that works. And I have a few coming up. So, you know, come join us. It'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, to catch Ember, definitely ring that bell. But do like, subscribe, and if you can help Ember out, I think the thing is still pinned for Ember's GoFundMe for medical bills. Yeah, so if you can, really appreciate it. Really appreciate you all here. Oh, I totally forgot as well. Ember, I told you to remind me that I had give outs to do.
Hey, the monthly membership thing is refilled.
I know. Look, I found out that does not work on Australian time, because I tried to do it the other day when it was the first my time, but it did not work. So I was like, how dare you? How dare you?
I know. It's just,
and then bam.
It's like Seattle time or something.
I don't know. Oh, really? Okay. So what's that? East Coast?
I don't know
West
for
Coast
sure.
time?
I haven't fully explored it, but something like that.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I got to get out my announcer voice. Oh, there's one more. There we go. Okay, and we have Evil Travis
I love
Statham. Yeah, Eve L. Absolutely fantastic. Gregory Nitsky. Ian Kramer. And is that you, Ralph? There we go. Winners, chicken dinners for everybody. Congratulations. Enjoy your emotes and other benefits. Woo!
Like member streams.
Member streams.
Does those.
Yeah, and last week we played Terraria and chilled out, and it was a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun. So yeah, I am doing that every fortnight. Things are great. Things are fantastic. Things are coming along. So I've had a fantastic time. I will try and get some more debates, but just not on MDD, because they do not moderate at all. So yeah, I've decided not to go on them because they're awful. Absolutely awful. So yeah, I do apologize, but that's okay. I think that other people are going to be doing stuff. There's still a number of platforms I can go to. It's not a problem. Not a
More all the time,
problem.
in fact.
Well, I've thought about creating my own debate channel, but you know, the problem is getting theist debaters. Like it's a problem. Like there's tons of atheists. They really want to debate. They're out there, you know, always keen. But the theist debaters, not so much. Like Christian debaters, Muslim debaters, they're not that
It's almost
common.
like people who know they believe irrational things aren't interested in logical discourse.
Look, I mean,
Weirdly
they've got a
enough.
direct line to the omniscient creator of the universe. You'd think that they would be up to the challenge, but apparently not. So, you know, they have to absolutely not debate, or they've got to act like an arse and sink the debate in a total garbage fire. You know, that's a possibility as well. So, yeah, one of the two. One of the two. Anyway.
Yeah.
I want to thank you all so much for coming. It's been fantastic. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all the things that help me out a great deal, and I really appreciate it. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.